Chapter 4171. Lin Ling, don't talk nonsense. While the seventh prince was trembling with anger, Grand Duke Tang gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. Lin Ling looked at Grand Duke Tang indifferently. Although the other party was very strong, he now had a life-saving trump card and was not afraid of him. Moreover, he believed that Grand Duke Tang would not dare to make a move on him in such a place. You don't seem to have any balls. Are you here to buy God Miao's true inheritance? Lin Ling said suspiciously. Brother Ling, you're so bad. At the side, Yu and the others covered their mouths and laughed. Grand Duke Tang's fair face instantly turned red, all the way to his ears. His expression of gnashing his teeth but not daring to act recklessly was extremely comical. Sir, what do you mean by that? Are you saying that our God Miao's true inheritance specializes in making balls? The seventh prince and the others knew Lin Ling's identity, so they did not dare to act rashly. However, the barrier masters did not know. When they heard Lin Ling mocking God Miao's true inheritance, they were naturally not convinced. Masters, does he not have an invitation? At this time, the seventh prince finally reacted and suddenly sneered. That's right, he doesn't have an invitation. He can't enter God Miao's true inheritance. The barrier masters immediately nodded and looked at Lin Ling with mocking eyes. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, the seventh prince suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was extremely carefree. It was as if he had finally seen Lin Ling lose face. The rules of God Miao's true inheritance state that one cannot enter without an invitation. Lin Ling, you want to enter without an invitation? Are you stupid? The seventh prince waved his right hand and an exquisite jade token appeared in his hand. Do you see this? This is an invitation. An invitation that was bought with real money. Lin Ling, oh Lin Ling, can you afford such a treasure? Country bumpkin. His last sentence was full of disdain. Country bumpkins really can't afford an invitation. The other barrier masters also nodded mockingly. Earlier, Lin Ling compared Miao Shen's true legacy to Eggy. Now, this Lin Ling didn't even have the qualifications to enter, so what was he pretending to be? Do you see it? This is an invitation. Do you have it? Do you have it? Pauper. The other princes also seemed to have found a place to vent. Each of them took out an exquisite jade tablet and waved it, wanting to blind Lin Ling's eyes. With them blocking the entrance, the people entering from the back were also blocked. When everyone saw this scene, they gasped. So many invitations from the same group of people, this group of people must have a big background. One had to know that they had spent countless efforts to obtain an invitation letter. They had relied on their connections and traveled far and wide to obtain it. Moreover, he had to pay a lot of royal crystals. With so many invitations, the amount of emperor crystals he had to pay was probably incalculable. Now, when they saw this group of people oppressing the blue-robed young man with invitations, they immediately sympathized with the blue-robed young man. Being mocked like this, the blue-robed young man must be very embarrassed and his self-esteem must have been hurt. Unfortunately, what could the blue-robed young man do? He could only endure the humiliation. Lin Ling, say something. Why aren't you saying anything? Seeing that Lin Ling was silent, the seventh prince suddenly laughed even louder. Lin Ling was still laughing, but his smile gradually turned into a sneer. Yuer and the others were also the same. They had never expected the seventh prince and the others to be so arrogant. Their saliva was almost spitting on their faces. Who says he doesn't have an invitation letter? However, at this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Then, the crowd was separated, and an old man strode over with an invitation letter in his hand. Then, he came in front of Lin Ling and presented it to Lin Ling with both hands. This sudden change caused the smiles of the seventh prince and the others to freeze in an instant. Someone gave up a precious invitation letter and gave it to Lin Ling? Is this person stupid? Do you know what you're doing? Giving away a precious invitation letter to someone else is also looking down on our invitation letter. The boundary master outside the door immediately said coldly. It's none of your business. Who knew that the old man was also incomparably domineering as he fiercely glared back. I bought this invitation letter. I can give it to whoever I want. Even if I use it to wipe my ass, it's none of your business. You. Those boundary masters were highly respected. When had they ever been looked down upon like this? I'm the city lord of the final world's 36 main cities, City Lord Ouyang. If you're not convinced, come and find me. The old man smiled domineeringly, appearing fearless. Then, he looked at Lin Ling. The domineering aura from before instantly disappeared, and in its place was a respectful expression. My lord, please accept the invitation letter. Lin Ling looked at the old man and smiled. Naturally, he knew who the old man was. It was an expert who had been assimilated by the human king's flame. Huh, how sad. You've bought so many invitation letters, yet you still have to push and push each other. Lin Ling, you're too down and out. When the seventh prince saw that Lin Ling had received an invitation letter, he immediately changed his angle to ridicule Lin Ling. Then, he gave a look to the other princes behind him. Those princes all understood and raised the invitation letters in their hands, telling Lin Ling that their seventh emperor alliance had plenty of invitation letters. However, this time, they had clearly failed. Is that so? Just as they raised their invitation letters, and even as they were happily waving them around, a large amount of laughter resounded in the corridor. Soon after, a large number of powerhouses, who were dressed in luxurious robes and had powerful strength, walked over in an orderly manner. They all had invitation letters in their hands. The most shocking thing was that they were also waving their invitation letters. Their uniform movements actually blinded everyone's eyes. Most importantly, this group of people had more princes than the Seventh Emperor Alliance. What a grand display! The surrounding people were shocked. However, what shocked them even more was that after the group of people arrived arrogantly, they all bowed to Lin Ling. My lord, please accept our invitation letters. This group of people were obviously experts who had been assimilated by Lin Ling. In the spiritual light city, there were tens of thousands of experts who had been assimilated by Lin Ling. Moreover, this group of people had personally witnessed Lin Ling's invincible might when he defeated the great god of the spirit nation. Therefore, even without the human king's flame, their respect for Lin Ling came from the bottom of their hearts. Swoosh! Their neat and tidy salutes, coupled with the identical invitation letters, undoubtedly caused the entire hall to fall into silence. Those from the Seventh Emperor Alliance had their jaws dropped to the ground. Previously, they had mocked Lin Ling for not having an invitation letter. But now? Chapter 4172. So many invitations. Sigh, I'm getting tired of taking them all. At that moment, Lin Ling said helplessly, there are too many, and we can't use them all. By the way, Seventh Prince, do you want any? If you want, feel free to take them. You. The Seventh Prince felt as if he was suffocating, unable to move up or down. How could he compare to Lin Ling in terms of invitations? That was obviously impossible. Moreover, he could not understand why this group of people would give face to Lin Ling. Among this group of people, he knew that many of them were reputable figures. Even if these people wanted to befriend Lin Ling, they would not go so far as to give him an invitation. The preciousness of an invitation letter was more important than any kind of friendship. For a moment, the Seventh Prince fell silent. He felt a burning pain on his face, and a great humiliation floated in his heart. Sorry, I don't like to bring invitations. Why should I bring them with me all the time when I'm just using them to wipe my ass? When I really need them, someone will definitely deliver them. Then, Lin Ling looked at the barrier masters and said. The barrier masters opened their mouths wide, and they were so angry that they were in a mess. However, they also knew that this upstart young man was not simple to be able to get an invitation from someone else. Now that Lin Ling also had an invitation, they obviously could not stop Lin Ling from entering. Pa! At that moment, the door suddenly opened. Then, 3 figures appeared. They were 2 old women and a young woman. After they walked out, they looked at the crowd coldly. What happened? Why is it so noisy outside the door? The woman seemed to have a high status as she spoke coldly. Princess Tian. The barrier masters immediately bowed respectfully to Princess Tian. They knew that this Princess Tian was the spokesperson of Miao Shen's true teachings. Moreover, her master was also an extremely terrifying existence. Princess Tian. The 7th prince also noticed that someone had come. The humiliation from before disappeared in an instant. Instead, he almost laughed out loud. It was really like someone giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. He knew that Princess Tian and Lin Ling had always been enemies. Now that Lin Ling wanted to enter Miao Shen's true teachings, even if he had an invitation, as long as the Princess Tian said a word, Lin Ling would definitely run away. He was even imagining how he would laugh at Lin Ling when Lin Ling ran away. Someone wants to enter Miao Shen's true teachings, but he is too arrogant, so he blocked the door. Then, the 7th prince pointed his finger at Lin Ling's words. He knew that Miao Shen's true, Lin Ling's the way. Princess Tian frowned and looked in the direction the 7th prince was pointing at. When she saw the blue-robed young man, her body unnoticeably trembled. It was Lin Ling. Her mind was filled with thoughts in an instant. She never thought that Lin Ling would come here. With the hatred between Lin Ling and Princess Tian, plus the fact that Lin Ling had offended her master, Lin Ling dared to come to Miao Shen's true teachings. He was courting death. She subconsciously wanted to sneer and give Lin Ling a heavy blow. However, at this moment, an image appeared in her mind. When she encountered the greatest humiliation in her life, a hero descended from the sky with lightning blooming, a ghostly face, and saved her from the evil smiling old men. That hero was a shadow that she could never erase. Most importantly, that hero quietly merged with the man she hated the most in her life. It's me. Princess Tian's heart suddenly became conflicted. He is Lin Ling. Seeing Princess Tian's expression constantly changing, the 7th prince thought that Princess Tian was angry, which made him laugh even more excitedly. Princess Tian, he is the one who is causing trouble. The few barrier masters seemed to have noticed the grudge between Princess Tian and the blue-robed young man, so they added insult to injury. Slap. However, as soon as they finished speaking, a crisp slap landed on their faces. What are you doing? Who asked you to stop them? Princess Tian stared at the barrier masters and said coldly. Ah. The barrier masters were stunned. The 7th prince was stunned. The 7th Emperor Alliance was also stunned. What the fuck is going on? Princess Tian, Lin Ling is an arrogant person. He has humiliated you many times. Don't you think you should do something about it? The 7th prince gritted his teeth, but he forcefully swallowed them back into his stomach and braced himself to ask, Princess Tian, Lin Ling is an arrogant person. He has humiliated you many times. Don't you think you should do something about it? Are you blind? Let me ask you, does he have an invitation letter? Princess Tian immediately looked at the 7th prince with a cold expression. Yes. The 7th prince replied instinctively. That's right. What else do you want? Do you want to cause trouble? Or do you think that Miao Shen's true inheritance doesn't exist? Let me tell you, 7th prince, don't cause trouble in Miao Shen's true inheritance. Otherwise, even the gods behind you won't be able to protect you. Princess Tian's voice became even colder. The seventh prince's jaw dropped. Although he was not familiar with Princess Tian, they had worked together a few times. Now, Princess Tian was not fierce to Lin Ling, but she was fierce to him. Who was the enemy here? And the few of you, are you blind as well? Can't you see that he has an invitation letter? Princess Tian then said to the barrier masters, scaring them so much that their faces turned pale. Do you know who he is? He is the trial taker of the current era. The heavenly princess continued to speak. Every time she spoke, the bodies of those world spiritists would tremble. Challenger? Trial taker of God? Of course, they knew what it meant. He was the spokesperson of the gods, and his status was higher than that of the final world city lord. Moreover, he is the heavenly voice of God. The heavenly princess did not stop until she was shocked to death. Plop. The barrier master's legs went soft, and they directly knelt down. Not only was he a trial taker, but he was also the heavenly voice of God among the trial takers. One had to know that the so-called heavenly voice of the gods was someone who had completed 5 trial missions and had already met the gods. If they angered this young man and he spoke ill of them in front of the gods, even Miao Shen's true inheritance would not protect them. After all, they were just ordinary barrier masters. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Their eyes were wet, and they almost cried. All of you, stay in order and come in obediently. Princess Tian's gaze swept across the crowd, and her majesty was extremely strong. This was also the reason why all the forces gave her face even though she was not strong. Now, this majesty was clearly displayed. Then, Princess Tian looked at Lin Ling with a complicated gaze, but she did not say anything. She turned around and entered the red sandalwood door. Outside the door, there was only silence. No one had expected such an outcome, and even Lin Ling hadn't expected it. Of course, he didn't think too much about it. After all, as far as he was concerned, the heavenly princess was a crazy woman that could do anything. Now that she was helping him, it might be a trap. Of course, he did not think too much about it, but the seventh prince's imagination was running wild. It was as if he had become stupid. Chapter 4173. He was shocked by the thought. Then, he shook his head and threw the thought out of his mind. In his opinion, unless the heaven and earth merged, it would never happen. Let's go in. Lin Ling led Yu and the others through the red sandalwood door. Of course, before entering, he suddenly stopped and looked at the barrier masters who were sitting on the ground. Am I still a country bumpkin? Lin Ling asked. No, no. Those boundary masters immediately shook their heads like rattle drums. Now, do you still want my invitation? Lin Ling asked again. Don't. They shook their heads even harder. Then if I'm not a country bumpkin, who is? Lin Ling asked one last time. The few boundary masters' expressions changed, and their eyes continued to flicker. They did not understand why Lin Ling would ask such a question. I'll ask again. Who is a country bumpkin? Seeing this, Lin Ling's voice turned cold. I know. Perhaps it was because it was too cold and majestic, the barrier masters finally reacted. They pointed at the seventh prince and the others and said, they are country bumpkins. You're courting death. The people from the Seventh Emperor Alliance were infuriated. These good-for-nothings had betrayed the Seventh Emperor Alliance because of Lin Ling. Very well. Seeing this, Lin Ling laughed loudly and entered through the red sandalwood door. The barrier masters felt as if they had just been given a new lease of life. They had only guessed Lin Ling's intention after being interrogated by him. He wanted to use them to mock the Seventh Emperor Alliance, and that was indeed the case. However, they had offended the Seventh Emperor Alliance. This made them smile bitterly. Of course, even if they were given another choice, they would still choose to betray the Seventh Emperor Alliance. After all, the Seventh Emperor Alliance was not to be trifled with. However, they could see that Lin Ling was not to be trifled with. Moreover, Princess Tian seemed to be speaking for Lin Ling. You have guts. The members of the Seventh Emperor Alliance were enraged. They wanted to use these boundary masters to teach Lin Ling a lesson, but in the end, the Seventh Emperor Alliance lost face. Lin Ling, on the other hand, did not take what had happened before to heart. He was still inside the red sandalwood door with Yu and the others. Behind the door was a luxurious hall. However, as they walked forward, the scenery around them constantly changed. Spring went and autumn came, flowers withered and bloomed. For a moment, the surrounding scenery turned into a sea of white clouds, but for a moment, the scorching sun hung high in the sky. A moment later, winter snow drifted over, and the whole world was wrapped in silver. Most importantly, this wasn't just a simple visual reaction, but also a physical reaction. The autumn wind blew gently, and it was a little cool. The spring rain fell on people's bodies, making them feel cold. Everything was vivid and lifelike. So beautiful. Yu and the others were also shocked by this scene, and their eyes flickered. Lin Ling immediately nodded his head. I guess we should be in a divine artifact now. All this time, he was not familiar with God Miao's true inheritance. However, after seeing it today, he finally understood why the gods gave face to God Miao's true inheritance. The big boss behind God Miao's true inheritance was indeed quite capable. Ha! As they walked forward, some naked big men began to appear around them. They wore beast skins and began to forge bronze cauldrons, ancient buildings, altars, and other things. In the beginning, these forged items were very crude, but as time passed, they gradually became more refined, and in the end, they became mythical. They used altars, bronze cauldrons, ancient bells, ancient bronze trees, and other things to pray to the heavens for power. They borrowed the power of wind, fire, and the sea to explode with each forging. Sometimes they failed, and the storm would drown them, and the earth would become a catastrophe, killing everything. However, when everything calmed down, they would get busy again and continue to forge bronze cauldrons and other things. They failed again and again, and finally, they gradually succeeded. This should be the most primitive form of a boundary master. And Yuer seemed to have seen something and said in shock. Never would I have thought that the path of a boundary master would be so ancient. Lin Ling nodded his head. Suddenly, he saw that this group of people encountered an old man. That old man carefully gave guidance to this group of people, greatly increasing their path of boundary masters. The melody of the great Tao began to appear in the things they forged. This also allowed this group of people to slowly walk to the peak, standing in the ancient era of gods. However, a nameless gale came and caused this group of people to die. In the end, only a few people survived. Compared to their ancestors, these people were much more low-key. They secretly passed down the skills left behind by their ancestors. Until now. It seems that this group of people did not have it easy to reach this far. It seems that they leaked the secrets of the heavens, and that's why they suffered a great calamity. However, who is the old man that taught them? He's so powerful. Yu and the others looked at the surrounding scene and kept guessing. On the other hand, Lin Ling recalled the scene when the old man appeared. Although the old man had only appeared for a short time, he had said, the primordial chaos has yet to be divided, transforming into a primordial light. This is the primordial ancestral chi of the highest supreme, and its name is Tao. This sentence sounded familiar to Lin Ling, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Brother Lin Ling, what's wrong? Yu asked when she saw Lin Ling's absent-minded look. I remember now. And at this time, Lin Ling finally had some impression. In the past, he came from Wuxia. At that time, he was bored of studying. Therefore, he had always studied the myths and legends of Wuxia. He was also very curious and yearned for them. Only then did Lin Ling remember what the old man had said. He had once seen it in an ancient book in Wuxia. The primordial chaos has yet to be divided, transforming into a primordial light. This is the primordial ancestral qi of the highest supreme, and its name is Tao. It is also known as the highest supreme Tao. This also meant that the old man who taught the skills was the ruler of the great Tao, the ancestor of Taoism, Taishang Laojun. Thinking of this, Lin Ling smiled bitterly and said, if these stories are true, then the person that the ancestors of this group of people met was Taishang Laojun. He was the one who taught this group of people the true great Tao of enchantment. Taishang Laojun? Yu and the others were shocked. This is a deity from ancient times. I'm afraid not many people know his name. Lin Ling shook his head and said. If it was in the past, he would have thought that it was some kind of rumor. However, he had met Patriarch Bodhi, so he was a little bit sure. Ancient times? Lin Ling, is this an era even older than the era of the deities? And Yuer was even more surprised. She did not expect Lin Ling to know this. Yes, in fact, there was an era before the ancient times. It was also the era when the world was created. It was called the primordial chaos era. Lin Ling nodded and said. Brother Ling, could it be that you are an ancient deity? How do you know all this? Yu and the others stared at Lin Ling in disbelief. Lin Ling smiled bitterly and said, these are just my guesses. They may not be accurate. Chapter 4174. In front of the Green Mountain, a white-clothed woman was sitting there, indifferently looking at Lin Ling and the others. The woman was sitting in a very dignified manner. Beside her was a small wooden table. On the wooden table was an exquisite vase with fresh flowers in it, adding a touch of elegance to the scene. Looking at the woman, she was around 30 years old, but she had a graceful bearing and a dignified aura. The white robe she wore was embroidered with exquisite dragon patterns. Those dragon patterns would occasionally emit light, making her look extremely extraordinary. That was a supreme dragon robe. It signified that the status of a world spiritist was a supreme position. Beside the woman stood two people. One of them was Princess Tian. At that moment, she was looking at Lin Ling with a complicated gaze. Unfortunately, Lin Ling ignored her. The other person was a man in his 20s. He didn't look old, but his eyes were calm and he had a superior demeanor. That man's long hair draped over his shoulders. He was also wearing a large robe. When the robe draped over the ground, it made him look somewhat lazy. However, his robe was embroidered with golden patterns. Clearly, he was a supreme dragon robe with golden patterns. Supreme Dragon Robe represented a title that surpassed World Spiritist God. They were respectively golden, dragon, and purple. According to legend, purple was the most prominent. In the entire Miao Shen's true inheritance, and even in the entire universal void, there were no more than 3 people with such a title. In the past, there was also a supreme dragon robe with golden patterns by Princess Tian's side. However, at that time, Lin Ling didn't show any respect at all. He directly beat that guy up in front of Princess Tian. That was how the grudge between him and Princess Tian came about. Lin Ling, long time no see. At that moment, the white-clothed woman said indifferently. Long time no see. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He was sure that this was the first time he had seen that woman. However, she said long time no see. That meant that she had seen him before. Could she be the woman with the proud son of heaven that he had met at Taoist Duobao's place? Long time no see. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. Lin Ling, how dare you be so rude to our heavenly snow world spiritist god? You should know that this is Miao Shen's true inheritance. Suddenly, the long-haired man beside the woman shouted coldly. His eyes were like lightning as he attacked Lin Ling. Lin Ling instantly felt that the man's strength wasn't much weaker than his. If they were to fight, Lin Ling would have to use his full strength to defeat him. However, the other party was a world spiritist god. One's overall strength did not depend on one's appearance but on one's treasures. Thus, the other party's strength was unfathomable. I am the trial taker of the Thunder God, and I only bow to the Thunder God. And where? Senior brother Dragon Fang. Princess Tian suddenly shouted. The man was surprised as he didn't understand why Princess Tian would speak for Lin Ling. Dragon Fang, forget it. Give some face to Mr. Lei Gong. At that moment, the white-clothed woman waved her hand and asked the man to bow. She didn't say anything else. However, her cold eyes were still looking at Lin Ling. Lin Ling had repeatedly opposed Miao Shen's true inheritance. Dragon Fang naturally knew that. Originally, he wanted to find an opportunity to teach Lin Ling a lesson. However, who knew that Lin Ling would send himself to the door? If it wasn't for Heavenly Snow World Spiritist God's words, Dragon Fang would definitely take action. Lin Ling, you seem to be very familiar with the matters of the ancient era. The white-clothed woman looked at Lin Ling and asked. She naturally heard the conversation between Lin Ling and Yu. She never thought that Lin Ling would know about the boundary primogenitor. Even she knew that the old man who taught the Great Tao was a real person. However, she didn't know the origin of the latter. Moreover, she knew that no one in Miao Shen's true inheritance knew about it. I know a thing or two. Lin Ling nodded. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord you mentioned before, does this senior really exist? The white-clothed woman's eyes were filled with curiosity. Of course. Lin Ling smiled. In fact, he wasn't 100% sure. However, he believed that the white-clothed woman knew even less than him. Therefore, it didn't matter if he bragged. This ancient great god was the boundary primogenitor and also the Tao primogenitor. He taught countless great Taos and was the first boundary master of the Grand Mist era. He had an 8 trigrams furnace. There was nothing that he couldn't refine and forge. He had forged many famous divine tools and treasures, such as the golden cudgel, the 9-tooth rake, and the golden cudgel. Among them, the Vajra bracelet can absorb any divine artifact, and the golden banded staff is even more of a stabilizing force. Lin Ling spoke frankly with assurance, causing the white-clothed woman's eyes to shine brighter and brighter. When Dragon Fang saw Lin Ling's appearance, he couldn't help but feel angry. He thought that Lin Ling was bragging. After all, Miao Shen's true inheritance gathered the number 1 great Tao of the void. If this Grand Supreme Elderly Lord really existed, how could they not know about it? However, soon, Lin Ling stopped talking halfway. That's all? When the white-clothed woman saw that Lin Ling stopped talking, she suddenly frowned. Senior, I came to Miao Shen's true inheritance to buy things, not to tell stories. If you want to listen to my story, you have to pay something. Lin Ling reminded her with a smile. When others came to Miao Shen's true inheritance to forge treasures, the price was very high. Therefore, since the white-clothed woman wanted to listen to his story, Lin Ling naturally had to ask for some compensation. Hearing this, the white-clothed woman snorted in her heart. With her seniority, others would be eager to work for her. However, Lin Ling was raising the price. He didn't put her in his eyes at all. Then what are you doing here? The white-clothed woman asked indifferently. I'm here to buy the divine spring. Lin Ling also stated his purpose. Lin Ling, you should know that our Miao Shen's true inheritance only sells divine tools. We don't sell treasures. In fact, we buy any treasures. The white-clothed woman refused. You should have seen the people of Miao Shen's true inheritance in the major forbidden areas. Therefore, as long as there are treasures, I will fight for them. By the way, last time at Taoist Wabao's place, you stole my map of the 8 gods' heavenly palace. I haven't settled this matter with you yet. Hee hee. I see. Hee hee. Lin Ling suddenly stroked his chin. However, there are always exceptions to everything. I have always believed that there is no transaction in the world that cannot be done. It mainly depends on the bargaining chip. Hee hee. Humph, Lin Ling, you really have a bargaining chip with our Miao Shen? Do you think you can compare to our Miao Shen's true inheritance? Hee hee. Hearing this, before the white-clothed woman could speak, Longya snorted disdainfully. I want a divine spring in exchange for divine stones. Hee hee. Lin Ling ignored him and said indifferently. Divine stones? Chapter 4175. Dragon Fong was also surprised by Lin Ling's generosity. He had taken out 1 divine stone to trade. However, he snorted disdainfully. It's not 1, it's 100. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ling also spoke calmly. Silence. Dragon Fong's pupils constricted. Princess Tian looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Even the white-robed woman stared at Lin Ling in shock. 100 divine stones was no small matter. If given to a martial god realm expert, they would be able to produce at least 30 strands of divine force. Those with good talent and strong refining ability might even be able to produce 40 strands of divine force. This meant that with this batch of divine stones, an ordinary martial god realm expert could instantly become an expert. As for the divine spring, although it was rare, it was not without substitutes. For example, as long as one had enough royal crystals, their power would not be weaker than royal crystals. However, the amount of royal crystals required was too large. It would take a long time to gather enough. 100 divine stones? Are you kidding? Dragon Fong said word by word. Do I look like someone who would joke? Lin Ling finally looked at Dragon Fong with disdain. Don't tell me that 100 divine stones have scared you. You're a boundary master of God Miao's true inheritance. You shouldn't be so narrow-minded. Such a rhetorical question was undoubtedly sarcastic. Dragon Fong suddenly gritted his teeth and was unable to speak. After all, 100 divine stones was not a small amount for him. You're really a frog at the bottom of a well. Seeing Dragon Fong's silence, Lin Ling muttered to himself. Although 100 divine stones is indeed a large amount, the rules of God Miao's true inheritance cannot be ignored. At this time, the white-robed woman said again. She was still stubborn. Plus 10 indigo spiritual flowers. Lin Ling shouted again. Swoosh. This time, the white-robed woman gasped. When she looked at Dragon Fong again, he opened his mouth wide. Naturally, they knew what the indigo spiritual flower was. It could be said that there was no such spiritual flower in the entire void. Only the spirit nation had it. If one wanted to obtain the blue spiritual flower from the spirit nation, they would have to join them. However, the true disciple of Miao Shen had never participated in any power struggles. Naturally, he would not join the spirit nation. Therefore, the true disciples of Miao Shen didn't have many sapphire spirit flowers. What do you think? Seeing the drastic change in their expressions, Lin Ling questioned indifferently as if he was the host. This was the territory of God Miao's true inheritance, which was also the place with the most treasures in the void. However, Lin Ling had used his heroic spirit to intimidate God Miao's true inheritance. Are you sure you want to exchange 1 divine spring with 100 divine stones and 10 scarlet flowers? Do you know what the treasure you took out represents? After recovering from his shock, Longya spoke solemnly. He was somewhat doubtful that Lin Ling had these treasures. Rich, willful. Lin Ling didn't explain anything. His words dispelled their suspicions. There was no reason. It was because he was rich. At this moment, the white-robed lady and the other two felt as if there was a huge rock in their hearts. They couldn't move up or down and felt uncomfortable. "All right, if you take out the map of the eight-god celestial palace, I'll give you the divine spring." In the end, the white-robed lady made a decision. "Senior, I'm rich and willful. However, it doesn't mean that I can pay for anything. Money doesn't matter. However, the map isn't money. Therefore, it's impossible." Lin Ling shook his head and refused without hesitation. "If you don't take out the map of the eight-god celestial palace, you won't be able to get the divine spring. Moreover, I can tell you that in the entire void, only God Miao's true inheritance has such a treasure." The white-robed lady looked at Lin Ling with burning eyes. She was determined to get the map of the eight-god celestial palace. After all, she knew that the seventh level of the eight-god celestial palace had many treasures that God Miao's true inheritance needed. Subsequently, just as she was about to speak, Lin Ling spoke before her. He said indifferently, "I've already named the price. I'll give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to consider." "Ah." The white-robed lady's eyes narrowed. Dragon Fang and Princess Tian's hearts skipped a beat. Because, shouldn't those words be said by world deity Tian Shui? In an instant, they were all astonished. However, after the white-robed lady recovered from her astonishment, she looked at Lin Ling coldly. As for Lin Ling, he looked back at her indifferently. It was as if they were having a peak confrontation. It was as if they wanted to see a hint of compromise in each other's eyes. Obviously, they didn't want to give in. Their gazes collided in mid-air, creating invisible sparks. Even the heavenly princess and Yu could feel the invisible pressure. They felt suffocated and felt suffocated. Time seemed slow, but it also seemed to have passed in an instant. "Time's up. Goodbye." Finally, a voice broke the silence. It was as if an ice cube that had been frozen for 10,000 years had been broken. The voice came from Lin Ling. After saying that, he turned around and left. Looking at Lin Ling's departure, the white-robed lady frowned. Finally, she compromised and said coldly, "Wait. If you tell us the secret of the ancient era, I can give you a chance to get the holy spring. Remember, it's just a chance. After all, the true inheritance of Miao Shen can only buy treasures, but not trade them. On the other hand, divine weapons can be traded at any time. As for the holy spring, whether you can get it depends on your ability. Deal." Yu and the others immediately looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling stood quietly as if he was thinking about something. Then, he said, "You're not playing any tricks, are you?" "Humph, the true inheritance of Miao Shen won't destroy our reputation for 100 divine stones." Hearing that, the white-robed lady snorted coldly. "Okay, you win. Deal." Lin Ling finally turned around and nodded. However, the white-robed lady shook her head and said, "No one has ever threatened the true inheritance of Miao Shen, and the true inheritance of Miao Shen has never made an exception. You're the first, so you win." Obviously, she also knew that the treasures that Lin Ling took out had tempted the true inheritance of Miao Shen, especially the sapphire spiritual flower. The true inheritance of Miao Shen was currently refining an ancient elixir that could improve the divine fetus of a warrior and give birth to a divine fetus. It was comparable to the divine inheritance that was sold in the divine shop of the four great deities. What such an ancient elixir lacked was the sapphire spiritual flower. If such an elixir could be refined, the structure of the void in the 9 regions would be changed. At that time, a large number of divine fetus holders would appear. The true inheritance of Miao Shen would be famous throughout the ages. This was because the true inheritance of Miao Shen could refine the divine fetus elixir that only existed in the era of the deities. Chapter 4176. In the distance, the fog was hazy. 9 mountains could be vaguely seen sitting on the ground, as if 9 giants were standing between heaven and earth. Lin Ling looked over as well. Immediately, he sensed an ancient power within the 9 mountains. It was like the might of the heavens. The 9 mountains are sacred mountains from the era of gods. I don't know why they fell into the void and were brought here by Miao Shen's true disciples. The holy spring of Miao Shen's true disciples comes from this mountain. The white-robed woman said lightly. Miao Shen's true disciples are really rich. With such a treasure, aren't you afraid that the 4 great gods will be jealous? Hearing that, Lin Ling suddenly smiled faintly. Humph, Lin Ling, don't try to drive a wedge between us. The white-robed woman immediately snorted. Miao Shen's true disciples seem to be sitting on a treasure, but you have to know that the spirit array Tao is created by countless treasures. Only through failure and failure can one finally succeed. Do you think the process of failure doesn't have to pay a price? The holy spring is the price of failure. The price of failure. That's my negligence. Lin Ling shrugged. Now, how do I enter the mountain? Which mountain has the holy spring? These 9 mountains all have the holy spring. However, some have just been born, and some have a large amount of holy spring. How to choose is up to you. After saying that, the white-robed woman turned and left. Up to me? Lin Ling recalled the white-robed woman's words and instantly knew that it would be difficult to obtain the holy spring. However, there were risks and rewards. Because from the white-robed woman's words, Lin Ling also knew that if he chose the right direction, he might get more than 1 holy spring. This was also a gamble. I don't like to gamble. Lin Ling shook his head and helplessly spread out his hands. Brother Ling, didn't you rely on gambling your whole life to make a name for yourself? Yu next to him said with a smile. Hearing that, Lin Ling curled his lips. Although he didn't like to gamble and preferred to take one step at a time, his life was often out of his control. He had to risk his life to rush to the sky. The sacred mountain of the era of gods. After that, Lin Ling did not act rashly. Instead, he quietly investigated. After all, he'd paid so many treasures, so he didn't want to return empty-handed because of carelessness. Lin, Bing, Do, Zhe, Jia, Zhen, Lai, in, front. This is the 9 words mantra. By borrowing the great Tao of the 9 words, it absorbs the essence of the world and condenses a divine spring. Among the 9 mountains, which mountain will have its own harvest? Lin Ling sensed for a moment, but he could only get a rough idea, which made him feel extremely helpless. Just as he was about to make his choice, a familiar aura suddenly spread out from one of the mountains. This aura was well hidden, but it was extremely terrifying. It was like a demon god, a god of death. Broken sword. Lin Ling's body trembled. Others might not be familiar with this aura, but how could he not be? Wasn't this the broken sword in the scabbard? Speaking of which, ever since Lin Ling's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, the tyrannical Song sword could no longer help him. Sometimes, it was even inferior to the true inheritance dark sword. The only advantage that the tyrannical Song sword had over the true inheritance dark sword was that it was hard. All this time, because Lin Ling had been busy, he had not been able to find the broken sword. He had never thought that he would meet the broken sword here. He remembered that Emperor God Zhang Gang had once told Lin Ling that the scabbard was extremely powerful and contained a powerful divine power. However, it needed Lin Ling to activate it. It seems that my luck is not bad. Lin Ling couldn't help but lick his lips. It was rare to encounter it, so he definitely wouldn't miss it. Of course, God Miao's true inheritance had collected countless treasures from ancient times to the present, so it wasn't strange for it to have a scabbard. Without a doubt, Lin Ling would definitely choose the mountain with the broken sword. That mountain was also called Soldier Mountain. Yu, wait for me to come back. Ha! Then, Lin Ling said to Yu and the others. Immediately, he flew in the direction of the 9th mountain. A moment after Lin Ling left, two figures slowly walked over. They were Princess Tian and Dragon Fang. Have you made your choice? Hee, this Lin Ling is really bold. He actually used 100 divine stones to bet with the blue spiritual flower. One should know that if his luck wasn't good, he would become a joke. Dragon Fang said as he walked with his hands behind his back. What do you mean? An Yuer suddenly looked at him and said. Being stared at by an Yuer, Dragon Fang didn't know why his heart suddenly skipped a beat. This was because he realized that this woman in white was really beautiful, like an otherworldly goddess. Then, he explained, the number of holy springs in the 9th mountain varies. If Lin Ling goes to the divine mountain, which happens to be collected by God Miao's true inheritance, then Lin Ling will return empty-handed. If his luck is slightly better, he will go to some divine mountains that have been brewing for a period of time. Maybe he can get half a holy spring. It could be said that in the 9th mountain, only one mountain had a complete holy spring, so there was no pressure to collect it. In that case, Lin Ling will have to rely on his luck. An Yuer said. Dragon Fang nodded and then said with a smile, of course, if Lin Ling's luck is extremely bad, then he will be unlucky. Because there is a divine mountain that even God Miao's true inheritance doesn't dare to approach easily. If Lin Ling goes there, not only will he return empty-handed, but he will also be haunted by bad luck. For a very long time. Bad luck? This time, Yu and the others were also surprised. Yes, God Miao's true inheritance once had a boundary god enter that divine mountain, but in the end, he returned in failure. In the following days, he was unlucky no matter what he did. When refining divine weapons, he failed again and again. Even if he failed, his hands and feet were blown off. There was another person who went to that divine mountain and died. At that time, God Miao's true inheritance was alarmed and used countless treasures to investigate. The result could only prove that the boundary god really fell to his death. Dragon Fang spoke with assurance. Fell to his death? Yu and the others all exclaimed. Not to mention powerful warriors, even mortals rarely fell to their deaths. This luck was too bad. Even more exaggerated, someone drowned in the latrine. Dragon Fang said again. You lied to us. At this time, Yu and the others couldn't believe it. How could there be such a strange mountain? Brother Dragon Fang is right. There were people who drowned in the latrine. We don't know why this happened, but those who were close to the mountain were really unlucky. Some even died from drinking water. These are all true. We, the true disciples of Miao Shen, also regard the mountain as a cursed mountain. Chapter 4177. Seeing her silly appearance, Yu and the others immediately looked in the direction that Princess Tian was pointing at, and their expressions immediately froze. That was because Lin Ling had gone to Bing Mountain, which was the cursed mountain. Ah, this guy, waha, he is really unlucky. Of all the choices, he actually chose that mountain. Is he an idiot? Longyo was stunned at first, then he burst into laughter. Because if he went to the cursed mountain, not only would he not be able to obtain the divine spring, he would also be plagued by bad luck. And this undoubtedly made God Miao's true disciples let out a big sigh of relief. As Lin Ling got closer and closer to Bing Mountain, many world spiritists in God Miao's true disciples also saw him. Even the white-robed woman saw him, and she could not help but laugh mockingly. As for the many world spiritists, they laughed unscrupulously. That was because they had also heard of Lin Ling, and this Lin Ling was very arrogant. He had repeatedly ruined the plans of God Miao's true disciples. If it was not for Lin Ling's background being too strong, they would have already made a move on Lin Ling. And now, God Miao's true disciples did not make a move, and Lin Ling instead went to seek his own bad luck. Is he an idiot? Of the 9 mountains, he actually chose the cursed mountain. Say, when he comes back with his tail between his legs, will he fall into the latrine and drown to death? Yes. You can't say that he is an idiot. Perhaps he knows that Soldier Mountain has the most divine springs, so he deliberately went there. However, although there are many divine springs, until now, no one has been able to obtain divine springs from Cursed Mountain. Ha! Ha! I fear that he was scared off before even seeing the divine spring. According to what I know, Grandmaster Lu has been there before. The pressure there is extremely great, and it is all a mysterious power that doesn't fear divine force, divine embryo, world essence, and other defenses. Yes. Let's wait and see this trial challenger Lin Ling lose face. Yes. Many world spiritists stopped their work and looked at the distant 9-layer mountain from the mountain range. As for some of the cultivators who came to buy treasures, at this moment, after hearing the conversation of the masters, they naturally understood the 9-layer mountain, and then laughed loudly. Among them were the 7th prince and the others. What an idiot! The 7th prince put his hands behind his back and said with a smile on his face. At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten that not long ago, Lin Ling had crippled his balls and humiliated him in public. Of course, after the 7th prince's mocking voice, another mocking voice rang out from the other side. Lin Ling, not only did you overestimate yourself, you're also very stupid. This time, the one who spoke was naturally Dragon Fang. He was all smiles as he quietly watched the show. It's still too early to say whether or not I've overestimated my capabilities. Yu and the others immediately refuted. However, the 7th prince obviously did not want to fight with them, because things would prove everything. At this moment, Lin Ling finally got close to Soldier Mountain. Upon closer inspection, he found that this mountain was majestic and unruly. It was as if it was a giant from ancient times, or a sword that soared into the sky. At the bottom of the ancient mountain, there was a winding path that was overgrown with weeds. It was as if this place had been abandoned by the world. There were no traces of human activity in this place. This made Lin Ling realize that no one had come to this mountain before. Pa! Lin Ling landed and appeared on the winding path. He looked forward and saw that the winding path went along the mountain and disappeared into the distance. It was as if following the winding path would lead him to the divine spring. Of course, Lin Ling also knew that this seemingly simple path would be filled with endless twists and turns. In fact, when Lin Ling took a step forward, a mysterious force enveloped him. The air seemed to ripple, and Lin Ling felt as if he had entered a mysterious domain. Moreover, what shocked Lin Ling was that he tried to use his realm essence, divine power, and even his physical strength to resist, but the force was not affected at all. It still lingered around Lin Ling's body. This is the steps of God, and it is demonic. At this moment, a palm-sized giant ghost floated out of Lin Ling's chest. It stared ahead and then retreated. The power of the divine stairs, and the demonic chi is too dense. I have to avoid it. The steps of God was a force that surpassed divine power. Coupled with the strange and varied nature of this force, the giant ghost was naturally unable to resist it. Okay. Lin Ling nodded. He guessed that this force came from the broken sword. The force that the broken sword emitted had always been strange. It was both demonic and murderous. At this moment, it was preventing anyone from approaching it. If it was any other time, Lin Ling would naturally not want to provoke this strange force. However, he had the scabbard, so he was not afraid. Instead, he tried to sense the broken sword and let the scabbard communicate with the broken sword. However, the broken sword had probably been here for millions of years, so it did not seem to sense the scabbard. While Lin Ling was sensing, the people in the distance laughed. In their opinion, Lin Ling was already unable to move an inch. He even regretted choosing this mountain. As for the world boundary deities of God Miao's true inheritance, they had a look of disdain. Because until now, no one from God Miao's true inheritance had obtained the divine spring from Bing Mountain. A mere Lin Ling wanted to get a share of it. He was simply overestimating himself. The force emitted by Bing Mountain is not simple. He will not be able to take the first step. Beside Princess Tian and the others, Longya laughed and said with incomparable confidence, "I estimate that in less than an incense's time, he will run away with his tail between his legs." However, before he finished speaking, the blue-robed young man at the foot of the mountain had already taken a step. This gentle movement undoubtedly caused all the laughter to disappear in an instant. He took a step. At first, I also wanted to take a step, but in the end, I failed. How could he succeed? Some world boundary deities said with jealousy. As the famous cursed mountain of God Miao's true inheritance, some pretentious world boundary masters naturally wanted to challenge it to prove themselves and shock others. Of course, most of them failed. Longya was incomparably confident before, but Lin Ling instantly gave him a resounding slap, causing him to be stunned for a moment. However, very quickly, he said indifferently, "You have some ability, but that's all." Because, I also wanted to challenge the cursed mountain, but in the end, I only took 5 steps. Senior Longya, you also went to challenge it? And you only took 5 steps? Beside him, Princess Tian was undoubtedly very surprised. Of course, as a world boundary master, we always like to challenge the difficulty. The cursed mountain is no exception. So, Lin Ling being able to take 1 step is also the limit. Longya nodded proudly. At that moment, his scattered long hair looked even more elegant. However, just as he finished speaking, his face froze. It was as if he had eaten feces. Because, Lin Ling at the foot of the mountain moved forward again. As if ignoring the bad luck and mysterious power, he took 5 steps in a row. Chapter 4178. This scene undoubtedly caused Dragon Fang's voice to become sharp, as if he had been slapped twice. However, it was only 2 slaps. "Hey, Brother Ling has walked more than 5 steps. Open your big dog eyes and see." At this time, Yu Yu pointed to the front and said. And this was the 3rd slap. Moreover, it was 3 crisp slaps. Dragon Fang could not help but open his mouth wide. He was so surprised that he could eat 5 duck eggs. Of course, it was not only him. In the mountains around the vast 9-layer mountain, countless noble boundary masters were also silent. Their ridicule and disdain were now replaced by surprise. Even on a distant mountain range, the white-robed woman stood there quietly, but her expression was incomparably wonderful. Could it be that he, who is not even a boundary master, has a more powerful soul power than the boundary master of God Miao's true inheritance? She naturally knew that the power emitted from Soldier Mountain could only be resisted by soul power. Moreover, it must be a powerful soul power. If Lin Ling was a world spiritist, she might have believed it a little. However, all the world spiritists in the entire void were gathered there, and Lin Ling was not among them. So, this was too inconceivable. Sure enough, this is the power of the God's steps. However, I can also use the God's steps, so I can resist a little. At this moment, Lin Ling did not know that he had caused a sensation in the entire God Miao's true inheritance. Countless boundary masters felt humiliated because of him. On the contrary, he relied on the powerful steps of wisdom to steadily move forward. Obviously, he did not care about the power around him. Instead, he cared about where the broken sword was. Watching Lin Ling walk faster and faster, God Miao's true inheritance became even more silent. Before, didn't someone say that Lin Ling would not be able to walk for long? And Yuer, who was beside Dragon Fang, suddenly said with a smile. Her words were full of sarcasm. Humph, it's just luck. He must have some treasure on him that can resist the mysterious power. Lin Ling is really sinister. However, this also means that he is not afraid of the power. However, if he is unlucky and encounters the legendary strange sword, he will be unlucky. Dragon Fang immediately snorted, his words full of jealousy. Ha! And Yuer and the others immediately chuckled. The ridicule in their laughter became even stronger. Because everyone knew that Dragon Fang was just trying to save face. Only a fool would believe his words. That's not right. Look, Brother Ling's luck seems to be really bad. That's because Brother Ling has already encountered that sword and has started to pick it up. At this moment, Yu suddenly said something. Ah! Dragon Fang was taken aback, then he rubbed his eyes hard. Next, his chin fell to the ground. At the foot of the distant mountains, Lin Ling's footsteps had already stopped. Moreover, he had found a broken sword, held it in his hand, and lightly played with it. This action also made the eyes of Miao Shun's true disciple fall to the ground. Only they knew that the reason why Soldier Mountain was a cursed mountain was because there was a mysterious evil sword. It could be said that it was a cursed sword. Originally, they thought that Lin Ling would definitely avoid that sword because those who saw that sword would either drown in the latrine or fall to their deaths while walking. Those who were lucky would also fail in everything they did. But who would have thought that Lin Ling would not be guilty if he did not know? Not only did he not avoid the cursed sword, but he also took the initiative to find it and picked up the evil sword. He will definitely fall into the latrine and drown to death. Compared to this, are we also unlucky? Because Lin Ling picked up the sword, we also saw the cursed sword. Quickly use the amulet to increase your luck and resist the bad luck. The true disciples of Miao Shun were all in chaos. At this moment, Lin Ling was standing at the foot of Soldier Mountain, looking at the violently trembling broken sword in his hand. Naturally, he could feel a terrible murderous and evil aura from the broken sword. This power seemed to have a spirit, and it was also cursing Lin Ling. Found you. However, Lin Ling was not afraid in the slightest. That was because the tyrannical Song sword had already fused with the scabbard. Thus, when he saw the broken sword, Lin Ling felt as if he had seen his companion, a lost companion. Everyone has been waiting for you. Then, Lin Ling said to the broken sword in his hand. The scabbard behind him also buzzed continuously, as if it was excited. However, the broken sword in his hand was still trembling, as if it still did not recognize Lin Ling. Chi! The broken sword even cut Lin Ling's palm, and a mysterious power rushed into Lin Ling's palm, crazily destroying everything. However, Lin Ling did not seem to notice it. He stared at the broken sword in his hand, took a deep breath, and said, "This is my, Lin Ling's sword. It will always be my sword." After saying that, he threw the broken sword fragment, which was as thick as an arm, into the sky. Then, the dark and cold sword slowly circled and stabbed towards Lin Ling. Such an action undoubtedly shocked the entire Ninth Mountain. Lunatic. That was the only word people could use to describe it. Of course, if they had to use another word to describe it, it would be that he was too arrogant. Everyone knew that Soldier Mountain had bad luck. Once someone saw the demonic sword, they would have bad luck after coming out. They might even die from drinking water. However, what about Lin Ling? He actually threw the demonic sword and let it shoot down from above his head. Was he not courting death? One had to know that even if the demonic sword did not have bad luck, there was a 50% chance that Lin Ling would be stabbed to death by the sword. There was no doubt that everyone's hearts were in suspense. Their gazes were fixed on the demonic sword that kept circling down, and their breathing stopped. Swoosh! The demonic sword that everyone feared was emitting a tempting demonic sound as it slowly fell, and it was getting closer and closer to Lin Ling. "Brother Ling!" At that moment, Yu and the rest subconsciously shouted from afar. However, just as they finished speaking, the sword of Hex stabbed into Lin Ling's body. "He's dead." Dragon Fang, who was beside them, immediately sneered because he had seen the scene in the distance with his own eyes. He was sure that Lin Ling was dead. Lin Ling, the divine heavenly voice of a generation, had fallen here. It's over just like that. Many people sighed when they saw that scene. They finally knew how terrible that bad luck was. In the beginning, many people even thought that falling into the latrine and drowning was a rumor. However, they believed it now because if the trial taker Lin Ling was killed in such a strange way, it would not be strange for him to drown in the latrine. The son of the undying demon, Lin Ling, actually died here. This kind of death is too tragic. The seventh prince was stunned for a moment, then said as if relieved of a heavy burden. However, just as he exhaled, his pupils suddenly narrowed, and then his pupils widened. The people around the ninth mountain, who had originally thought that the outcome was certain, suddenly became excited. Because in their eyes, Lin Ling moved as if he had come back from the dead. Then, he patted the huge sword behind him and moved forward again. This also made many people in the mountains give themselves a few hard slaps to see if this was a dream. Chapter 41-79. No, look at the sword on his back. However, some people were more attentive and immediately noticed that something was wrong. Could it be that the cursed sword was inserted into the scabbard on his back? Finally, a dignified voice thundered into everyone's heart, causing many people to react in horror. At this moment, Lin Ling carried the big sword on his back and continued to move forward in an extremely good mood. Previously, when he threw the sword, he gambled on the 50% chance. If the sword deviated by a bit, it would be inserted into Lin Ling's head. If it deviated by a bit, it would be inserted into Lin Ling's scabbard. In fact, this was also a 1% chance. After all, the scabbard's opening was so small, who could guarantee that the evil sword would enter the scabbard? However, Lin Ling dared to gamble. Because he knew that if he wanted his lost companion to return, as the sword's owner, he should not be afraid of the sword and believe in his companion. Otherwise, he was not worthy of using the sword. Fortunately, at the last moment, the broken sword completely recognized Lin Ling. Look what happened. On the distant mountain range, the white-robed woman said lightly. Obviously, she did not see what happened. However, the 9-layer mountain was an important place, so Miao Shen's true inheritance had always been supervised by treasures to prevent the holy spring from being stolen. Open the mysterious yellow. She shouted in a low voice as her hands formed a complicated boundary. After the boundary was drawn in the air, a white horsetail whisk appeared in her hand and she gently waved it. The white clouds in the sky dispersed with a rumble, revealing 9 ancient mirrors. One of the mirrors absorbed the light of heaven and earth, reflecting a beautiful and blurry image that scattered on the ground. And those pictures were the scene after Lin Ling entered the Soldier Mountain. A master opened the mysterious yellow 9 mirrors. The boundary masters of Miao Shen's true inheritance exclaimed. Then, they curiously looked into the distance. In the reflection of the mirror, Lin Ling strode along the winding path and then picked up a broken sword. Then, he looked at it and threw the broken sword without any hesitation. Looking at the broken sword rolling in the sky and falling toward Lin Ling, such a scene once again frightened many people. Although people had seen such a scene before, they did not look carefully at that time. Now, they could see how Lin Ling survived. Whoosh! The cold and evil demonic sword was getting closer and closer to Lin Ling. That sharp blade was about to claim Lin Ling's life at any moment. Everything was exactly the same as before. However, at this moment, the the sword that was rolling up and down suddenly changed its trajectory. It was originally aimed at Lin Ling's head, but after rolling, it fell into the scabbard without missing a millimeter. All of this seemed to be magical, as if it was predestined by the unseen. Wow! Wow! After this clear scene, the endless green mountain was in an uproar. The mystery in everyone's hearts had been solved. The swords curse swords. Isn't he? After a moment of silence, a soft voice sounded from the green mountain, causing endless ripples in people's hearts. They cried out in their hearts. He dared to gamble with a 50% chance. This Lin Ling was indeed a madman. At this moment, Lin Ling did not know of the huge reaction outside. He walked along the winding path without any obstruction. After the broken sword was put away, the ancient power of the entire mountain range disappeared. Instead, the scabbard emitted bursts of joy. It was as if the broken swords were reunited, like brothers reuniting. 3 divine springs. Whoosh! Finally, Lin Ling stopped. In the distance, 3 clear springs sat on the ground, emitting rich spiritual energy. In the air above the springs, water droplets condensed in the void and slowly dripped down. However, the speed of condensation was very slow. It would take several years to condense a single drop. However, when the water droplets fell, ripples immediately appeared on the calm surface of the springs. Strands of spiritual energy spread out like ribbons. Good harvest. Whoosh! Staring at the 3 divine springs, Lin Ling licked his lips and immediately uprooted the divine springs. Even the soil was not spared. Then, he put them into his ring. After doing all this, Lin Ling seemed to have eaten a full meal. Then, he turned around and left. He came out. Yes. At this moment, in the distance of the 9-layered mountain, people saw Lin Ling coming out with the big sword on his back. Their hearts inexplicably trembled. I did not expect him to succeed. Moreover, he obtained a lot of divine springs. Yes. On the mountain range, the white-robed woman's expression was somewhat complicated. Originally, according to her estimation, Lin Ling only had a 30% chance of obtaining the divine springs. At that time, the true disciples of Miao Shen would also be able to obtain a lot of treasures from Lin Ling. However, she had obviously miscalculated. Lin Ling used an unknown evil method to subdue the sword of curse, allowing him to obtain the divine springs without any hindrance. The divine springs in Bing Mountain had not been collected for many years, so there must be a lot of them. Most importantly, each of the divine springs had been filled for many years and were in a full state. Lin Ling, come here. Then, the white-robed woman shouted at Lin Ling in the distance. Lin Ling, who was at the foot of Bing Mountain, also looked up. Then, he saw the white-robed woman in the distance and immediately walked over. How many divine springs have you obtained? After a long time, when she saw Lin Ling, the white-robed woman calmly asked. 3 woof. Lin Ling did not hide the truth. However, after he spoke, he clearly heard the white-robed woman gasp. In this regard, Lin Ling was not surprised. 3 divine springs. Such a harvest not only surprised the white-robed woman, but also Lin Ling himself. It could be said that the true disciples of Miao Shen had lost a lot of money this time. What's the matter with that broken sword? The white-robed woman asked again. Why? Does the true disciples of Miao Shen want to take back the sword? Hearing this, Lin Ling did not answer. Instead, he asked another question. That's not the case. The true disciples of Miao Shen have already investigated the sword. This broken sword is sharp and has spirituality. It is impossible for it to recognize a master. If you force it, the broken sword will self-destruct. Moreover, this broken sword also has an evil nature. Those who do not have a strong soul power will easily be affected by it and be plagued by bad luck. Today, it's better that you take the broken sword away. At least we can enter the divine springs in Bing Mountain to collect them at any time. The white-robed woman said. This sword is somewhat related to me. Although it has bad luck, I think I should be able to bear it. Since the true disciples of Miaoshan don't want it, then just give it to me. Lin Ling did not explain too much. Okay, but if you have bad luck, don't blame us for it. The white-robed woman nodded. She did not know that the broken sword was what Lin Ling wanted. Otherwise, she would have already raised the price. Although the Sword of Curse was a rare treasure, the true disciples of Miaoshan had investigated it for many years. Naturally, they knew that the power was not used by martial artists. As for Lin Ling, they estimated that they could not control that power. Chapter 4180. Here. Next, Lin Ling handed over a brocade pouch. Inside it were 100 divine stones and indigo spirit flowers. The white-robed woman took it and did not check it. Then, she asked calmly, about the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord you mentioned, what kind of big shot is this? This was also the bargaining chip that Lin Ling had agreed to with her earlier. Lin Ling laughed secretly again. He did not expect that the mythical stories that he had read in his previous life could be used as bargaining chips. He smiled faintly and said, Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, one of the 3 great sect masters of the primordial age. He was in charge of the Ren school and had the ability to transform into the 3 pure ones. In today's martial arts, many martial arts and divine abilities were derived from his hands. Moreover, he was also recognized as the number 1 person in the spirit array. The 3 great sect masters? The ancient era was so powerful? The white-robed woman's heart trembled, as if she believed what Lin Ling said. Lin Ling nodded slightly and pointed at the white-robed woman like a teacher. It's not the ancient era, but the primordial age. The experts of the ancient era, such as Sun Wukong, Erlang Shen, Neza, and so on, are actually the descendants of the ancient gods of the primordial age. I've never heard of these people. But, what are the 3 great sect masters you mentioned? The so-called 3 great sect masters, their orthodoxies are immortalized for hundreds of generations. 99% of today's martial arts are from their orthodoxies. They are the ancestor of Taoism, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, the Primordial Heavenly Lord, and the sect master of Jia School, the Prime of Heaven. Lin Ling, are these ancient figures the strongest gods in the void? Also, you should know about the will of the world, right? What does it represent? Also, where did these great gods of the primordial age go? Faced with the white-robed woman's continuous questions, Lin Ling felt a little dizzy because he was just spouting nonsense. However, he had already bragged, so he had to continue pretending. The mysteries of the Grand Tao are beyond your imagination. What you've seen now is merely the tip of the iceberg. Even above the Grand Mist era, there was another era, and that era was the era of creation. It was called the Desolate Era. At that time, everything had yet to become a spirit. The most powerful gods in the void. Lin Ling spoke frankly and frankly. Lin Ling's voice was like the sound of heaven as it spread through the boundless green mountains, causing countless world spiritists to widen their eyes as they carefully listened to what Lin Ling was saying. Bastard! Without a doubt, the 7th prince was so angry that he clenched his teeth. He did not know where Lin Ling had obtained these stories. He actually managed to frighten the world spiritist deity who looked down on true teachings to humbly ask for guidance. Since you're so good at bragging, why don't you go and brag? Dragon Fong was equally angry. He naturally didn't believe Lin Ling's words. What made him furious was that although he didn't believe it, many boundary masters in Miaoshan's true inheritance believed it. For example, world deity Tian Shui. If this continued, the true disciple of Miaoshan might break the ice with Lin Ling and make peace with him. Primeval age? I've never heard of this before. And that was indeed the case. At that moment, the white-robed woman was getting more and more curious. Of course, hidden in the dark, many masters in dragon-patterned robes were quietly listening. Even the purple-patterned robed master of Miao Shen's true inheritance was the same. For them, Lin Ling's words were too novel. It was as if he had revealed the secret of the great Tao. The untainted age is the most ancient age. In fact, Taishang Laojun, Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, and Tongti Hierarch are also the disciples of a great god. This great god is the incarnation of the will of heaven. His name is Hongjun Ancestor. He is as famous as Pangu, the great god of creation, and as old as Nuwa, the mother of all things. The three great gods were the ancestors of the primeval age. They passed down the great Tao, opened the sky, and created all things. Because I only know the general idea. What happened in the primeval age, only those ancient great gods knew. However, I guess that the will of the world and the will of the great Tao must be incompatible. This led to all the ancient great gods fighting against the will of the world, so they disappeared without a trace. Lin Ling said faintly. However, when he was bragging, he had also guessed something. Moreover, his mind suddenly roared. He remembered that when he was young, he had read a fairy tale. In it, there was a mysterious and ancient existence. That was the primeval spirit of creation. This primeval spirit of creation was only the will of the universe, not a living being. Moreover, it taught Hongjun Ancestor. Could it be that the primeval spirit of creation was the will of the world? Thinking of this, Lin Ling's heart trembled. If that was the case, then who could fight against it? His random guess had undoubtedly frightened Tian Shui, great boundary god, so much that her face turned pale. The main reason was that she had once obtained a treasure in the secret realm. There were a few names recorded in the inscription. They were Pangu, Nuwa. This treasure was also the top secret of Miao Shen's true inheritance. Ordinary people wouldn't have access to it. She knew. However, a mere Lin Ling actually knew. Moreover, he said it clearly and logically as if he was the reincarnation of an ancient great god. Moreover, she agreed with Lin Ling's previous guess. Ancient great gods had monstrous strength. Why couldn't any of them be seen today? Perhaps, they were really fighting against the will of the world. This was also the reason why the will of the world was so terrifying during the deities' era but had disappeared for so many years. Desolation era, primordial era, deities' era, and then our era? Are we also considered as the post-deities' era? The white-robed lady muttered to herself. No, the void universe has been born for countless years. How could it be just a few short eras? As far as I know, the Desolation era was the creation of heaven and earth. The Primordial era was the awakening of all living beings. After that, it was the Deification era. In that era, the gods were in chaos. An ancient great god, Jiang Zia, used the reputation of the ancient great god to open the deification list. With the deification list, he sealed the gods in the chaotic primordial era, using order to make the world peaceful. Lin Ling said calmly. He told her about the deification of the gods and journey to the west that he had read when he was young. At this moment, in the endless mountain range of Miao Shen's true inheritance, there were boundary gods sitting cross-legged with their eyes opened. Some boundary gods stopped forging and some muttered to themselves. Deification. They only had this one sentence in their hearts. Suddenly, their minds lit up. It was as if they had found their past and present lives. However, this mysterious feeling quickly disappeared, causing their bodies to tremble. Could it be that they were a god in the primordial era? Had they entered the deification list? Now, they had reincarnated. Rumble. At the same time, under the mountains, there was an ancient aura erupting. Someone had broken through. Then, a few more people broke through. What? Listening to Lin Ling's bragging, they actually broke through. Such a magical scene undoubtedly caused Longya and the seventh prince's jaws to hit the ground again. Even Princess Tian, Yu, and the others narrowed their eyes. They felt as if Lin Ling had sprinkled endless Tao. Those who listened to the Tao would instantly become gods. Chapter 4181. On the mountain peak where Lin Ling was, Tian Shui Great World Deity and Lin Ling were also shocked, especially Lin Ling. He was even more speechless than Yu and the others. Did they break through after listening to his boasting? However, he also realized that a warrior's breakthrough was dependent on the right time, right place, and right people. Those who broke through must have heard what he said and suddenly gained confidence, thinking that he was a reincarnated god. Therefore, with great courage and perseverance, they broke through the gate. There were so many people in the mountain, so it was normal for some of them to break through. Is this the so-called preaching of the great Tao? At this moment, the white-robed lady looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. At this moment, the blue-robed young man seemed to be shining with the light of a god. Lin Ling blushed when she looked at him. He said indifferently, "All right, I've given you what I should. Goodbye." "Wait, Lin Ling, who are you?" Tian Shui Great World Deity suddenly shouted. Her words made Lin Ling pause. He shook his head mysteriously and didn't say anything. He just turned around and left. "I'm the trial taker Lin Ling. That's all." A faint voice came out from Lin Ling's mouth and echoed in the mountain range. However, to those who believed in Lin Ling was even more unfathomable. He might be a reincarnated god from the ancient times. And for those who hated Lin Ling, it was Lin Ling who had pushed his pretentiousness to the limit, hiding his achievements and fame. Anger. The people of the Seventh Emperor Alliance were so angry that their teeth were itching. "Lin Ling, do you know the Wood Spirit Queen of the Kaiyuan River? She's facing a great calamity now. Some people suspect that they are related to the will of the world. If you know them, you can go there now and save them." At this moment, Tian Shui Great World Deity's voice came again. Lin Ling nodded and didn't say anything. He called Yu and the others and left. Why is he so powerful? Looking at Lin Ling, who left casually, Princess Tian had a complicated expression. Her eyes were filled with reluctance. "Brother Lin Ling, I didn't expect you to be so talented in acting. You were fooled by Miao's true inheritance." After leaving Miao Shen's true inheritance, Yu and the others began to laugh like flowers blooming in the wind. "You're teasing me." Lin Ling smiled and stretched his hands towards Yu and the others' armpits, making them giggles. "Lin Ling, how do you know so many ancient myths?" And Yu's cheeks were flushed, but she still looked at Lin Ling. Ancient gods," he said, "the ancient ancients, the ancient times' stories, the story, the origin." Lin Ling looked at the endless sky with a complicated look in his eyes. If all of this was true, then Lin Ling had also walked out of the hometown of an ancient god. "Let's not talk about this. I heard from Miao Shen that the magical forest in the Kaiyuan River is a little dangerous." Then, Lin Ling frowned. When he saw Yu and the others were puzzled, he immediately explained. Back then, when Lin Ling had just gone to the Kaiyuan River, he had helped the Wood Spirit Clan, Rock Spirit Clan, and Fire Spirit Clan in the magical forest. Now, according to Miao Shen's legend, they seemed to be in danger and were regarded as the will of the world. Since it was related to the will of the world, it was no small matter. Therefore, Lin Ling had to go and take a look no matter what. After hearing Lin Ling's words, Yu and the others immediately nodded. After they left the Tianzhou, they immediately moved forward along the void and headed straight for the Kaiyuan River. The Kaiyuan River was one of the forbidden areas in the 9 prefectures. There were endless secrets hidden in it. There were even rumors that on the other side of the Kaiyuan River was the hidden place of the dragon tribe. However, in the history of the 9 prefectures, not many people had managed to reach the other side of the river. Lin Ling was one of them. While they were hurrying, Lin Ling also checked the scabbard. Now, he had found another broken sword. The scabbard would definitely increase its power by a lot. As for the scabbard, Lin Ling never needed to comprehend it. As long as he found the broken sword, he would be able to display the power of the scabbard. Of course, although this method was fast, there was also a fatal danger. For example, if he didn't find the corresponding broken sword, the sword would kill its owner. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang out. The originally hot scabbard suddenly began to cool down. Lin Ling instantly knew that this was the reason why the broken sword had merged with the tyrannical song sword. Clang! Lin Ling immediately stopped and pulled out the sword. The new tyrannical song sword was even more majestic. On the huge sword body, there was demonic energy flowing like water. The visual impact was very strong. Realm essence was activated. With a boom, a powerful force exploded from Lin Ling's body, causing Yu Yu and the others to fly backward. All of them looked at Lin Ling in shock. 100 strands of divine power. Lin Ling looked at the tyrannical song sword in his hand in disbelief. He was extremely shocked. Although Emperor God Zhang Gang had once said that this sword was extremely powerful and was the sword of the sword demon, Lin Ling never expected that just finding a broken sword would give birth to 100 strands of divine power. One had to know that currently, Lin Ling had only cultivated and comprehended more than 50 strands of divine power. It seemed that Lin Ling had more than 150 strands of divine power. With such strength, Lin Ling was undoubtedly one step closer to becoming one of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 prefectures. If I open my 7th Dantian, I will definitely have the strength to fight against Luli Empress. Holding the magnificent sword, Lin Ling's heart was filled with heroism. Brother Ling. At this moment, Yu Yu and the others also flew over and looked at Lin Ling in shock. Hee, this old friend, your strength has finally increased. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. As he spoke, the tyrannical song sword seemed to have sensed Lin Ling's voice. On the sword body, killing intent flowed like water from the sword tip to the sword hilt. It looked extremely beautiful. Lin Ling put away the tyrannical song sword and patted the vines on his left shoulder. Now, among his companions, only little Kunlun's strength had not increased. However, in reality, little Kunlun was 1,000 times stronger than before. It was just that Lin Ling's strength had increased too quickly, so he felt that it was slow. However, if one were to take martial gods as an example, at least 60% of them would not be a match for little Kunlun. Let's go. Next, Lin Ling also increased his speed and rushed toward the Kaiyuan River. After a long time, a dazzling Milky Way appeared in the distance. Even though it was far away, Lin Ling and the others could still hear the rumbling sound of the river. They had arrived at the Kaiyuan River. Lin Ling's eyes immediately revealed a nostalgic look. It was here that he had obtained the inheritance treasure of the gods and met the Kurishin of the 4 great gods. He had also brought the God Slayer alliance to its peak. It could be said that the Kaiyuan River was also the place that had allowed Lin Ling to completely transform. Of course, the most important thing was that this was the place where Lin Ling had brought in Yuer back. And now, Lin Ling had come again. That's the Kaiyuan River. It was obviously the first time Yu Yu and Xian Yuan Gu had come here, so they could not help but be surprised. Chapter 4182. Without stopping, Lin Ling led the 3 ladies straight to the Kaiyuan River. Although the Kaiyuan River was huge, there was only one entrance. They could go through the entrance to reach the bottom of the Kaiyuan River. Stop! You can't enter the Kaiyuan River. When Lin Ling found the entrance, a loud shout came from the front. At this moment, the enormous entrance to the origin opening river was blocked by countless people, and all of these people were at the martial god realm. When Lin Ling was here last time, most of them were at the martial ancestor realm and half-step martial god realm. However, all of them were at the martial god realm now. There must be some secret hidden here. Who are you? Lin Ling spoke indifferently when he saw the group of people. It's none of your business. Get lost. Outside the entrance, an old man immediately shouted angrily. He didn't take Lin Ling seriously. Oh, what a beautiful lady. Not far away, a middle-aged man looked at Yu and the others with a lewd smile and licked his lips. His eyes were filled with evil intentions. Martial god Tianji, don't cause trouble. However, someone beside him advised him. Hehe, we've been guarding this place for a year. It's been too boring. The middle-aged man shook his head and ignored that person's warning. Die. However, as soon as he moved, a black shadow immediately attacked him. It was extremely fast and charged into the middle-aged man's body. Then, the middle-aged man's body trembled and his face became distorted. Save me, save me. He cried out in pain. In the end, he stopped moving. A strange jellyfish swam out of his body with countless tentacles. Then, it flew back to Lin Ling. It was the evil ghost jellyfish. The evil ghost jellyfish was currently in the form of a divine fetus. How could the middle-aged man resist it? After it charged into the middle-aged man's body, it immediately devoured everything. The person who killed the middle-aged man was naturally Lin Ling. That was because the middle-aged man wanted to harm Yu and the others. In Tianzhou, there were people who harassed Yu and the others. However, Lin Ling didn't care because those people were too weak. Lin Ling didn't want to attack them. However, it was different now. Those people were all at the martial god realm. As a man, Lin Ling naturally wouldn't allow his wife to be humiliated in front of such experts. You've got guts. Everyone looked at him coldly when they saw that Lin Ling had killed a martial god realm expert without saying a word. You are the ones who are bold. Lin said coldly. Because at this moment, he was even more certain that something had happened in the demon forest. I ask you, why are you blocking the entrance? Who are you? Lin Ling said again. Ha ha ha. Outside the entrance, the martial gods laughed. Then, an old man who was sitting cross-legged slowly stood up. His aura was extremely terrifying. Behind him, a demonic shadow was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It turned into the shadow of a giant bat. It was obvious that it was a divine fetus talent. Moreover, it had reached the innate realm. A coffin floated not far from him. At that moment, the coffin slowly opened and a young man walked out. The young man's clothes were torn and there was a rotten smell on his body. When he opened his eyes, his gaze fell on Lin Ling as if he wanted to devour Lin Ling. Of course, this kind of power had no effect on Lin Ling. You don't deserve to talk to me. Before the old man could speak, the young man said coldly. His voice was filled with disdain. It was obvious that these two people were the leaders. Kid, I don't care who you are or who is behind you, but you can't interfere with what we want to do. You can't afford to offend the people behind us. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. Apologize and get lost immediately. I'll spare your life. The old man said coldly. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed. Did the old man think Lin Ling was an idiot because he was young? The old man seemed to be letting Lin Ling go, but in fact, he was testing Lin Ling. If Lin Ling really apologized, the old man would probably kill Lin Ling immediately. This was because he saw that Lin Ling was afraid. Naturally, he knew that Lin Ling was guilty. Unfortunately, regardless of whether it was a test or not, Lin Ling was not afraid of them at all. He was not afraid at all. He wanted to know who was the mastermind behind the scenes who could summon this group of powerhouses. I'm talking to you because I'm giving you face. If I don't give you face, you'll definitely regret it. Lin Ling slowly pulled out the tyrannical song sword. The 6 dantians in his body started to roll quietly. I wonder how they'll regret it. Seeing that Lin Ling was about to make a move, everyone activated their boundary essence. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. That's death. Lin Ling finally made his move. There was no need for him to fuse his talents. He could crush the group of martial gods with his physical strength and boundary essence. Swoosh! With a slash of his sword, a martial god was cut in half before he could make a move. Swoosh! Another sword strike, and another head flew into the air. With Lin Ling's current strength, only the leader of the 9 states' 10 evils could contend with him. However, that was all. His speed is so fast. Seeing that Lin Ling's sword had taken their lives, the martial gods were shocked and exclaimed. However, the person who exclaimed was instantly killed. Killing martial gods was like chopping vegetables. Gradually, everyone felt that a nightmare had arrived. Capture those women. Then, the remaining people looked at Lin Ling. They wanted to capture Yu and the others to make Lin Ling afraid. One had to admit that they were extremely sinister. However, were Yu and the others weak? Yu and the others looked at each other. They sneered and attacked as well. One by one, they unleashed their divine fetuses. Xian Yuan Gu activated the flipping sky seal that he had obtained from Grandfather Tang and smashed a martial god into a meat patty. Oh no, these women have divine fetuses and the divine artifacts in their hands are very fierce. The people did not expect that these delicate beauties would be so strong. Those who had wanted to take advantage of them were now so scared that their legs turned to jelly. Where did these people come from? Why are they so fierce? The 3 women have divine fetuses and divine artifacts. That young man does not seem to have any divine fetuses, but his strength is simply overwhelming. They are definitely not ordinary people. As more and more martial gods were killed, the remaining people became more and more terrified. Boy, your strength is not bad. Let me fight you. Use your full strength. Seeing that the people around him were dying, the old man finally decided to attack. A pair of bat wings sprouted from his back. His entire body was surging with demonic chi, causing the surroundings to explode continuously. His cultivation was at the peak of the martial god realm and he had 18 divine forces. No wonder he was the leader. His strength was indeed terrifying. He was even more powerful than Duan Wuhan in the past. You are not qualified to make me use my full strength. However, this strength was like a chicken or a dog to Lin Ling. Swoosh! Chapter 4183. The old man immediately sensed the fierce murderous aura and demonic aura. He was shocked and immediately unleashed all his strength. Countless black lights surrounded him and formed a huge black ball in front of him. The black ball kept spinning and emitted a power that could crush one's soul. However, when Lin Ling's sword slashed at him, the black ball that condensed all of the old man's strength was instantly slashed open. The old man who was behind the black ball had a sword mark in the middle of his head that went all the way to his legs. He looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. You are... Before he could finish his sentence, his body was torn apart from both sides. He couldn't be more dead. Who are you? However, the stinky young man continued the old man's words and looked at Lin Ling with a face full of fear. He no longer had the disdainful look from before. He was so scared that the rotten flesh on his body kept dripping off. Lin Ling's previous slash made him realize that he was no match for Lin Ling. You should be from the land of eternal slumber, right? Lin Ling held his sword and walked toward the young man step by step. The young man was surrounded by a few people as if he was being protected. However, when Lin Ling arrived, those people all moved aside and didn't dare to block his path. They didn't even think about sneaking up on him when Lin Ling walked past them. They knew that the young man's strength had reached a level that defied the natural order. If they attacked such a strong person, they would die even faster. Yes, yes, yes. I'm the successor of the land of eternal slumber. The young man said nervously. Back then, I heard from the Gu King that he had found a successor. It turns out that it's a piece of trash like you. How disappointing. Lin Ling stopped in front of the young man and said calmly. Gu King? You know the Gu King? Hearing that, the young man's eyes lit up. I know him. How can I not know him? Lin Ling nodded. His words made the young man happy as if he had met an acquaintance. However, Lin Ling's next sentence sent him straight to hell. It was impossible for him to recover. Gu King died in my hands. Lin Ling said indifferently. Ah, you killed the Gu King? You're lying to me, you're lying to me. Gu King is the leader of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils. No, the Gu King is indeed dead. Furthermore, he died in Spirit Light City. It is said that he was killed by the trial challenger Lin Ling. Could it be that you are trial taker Lin Ling? The young man said incoherently. Finally, he raised his head and looked at Lin Ling with even more fear in his eyes. As for the people around him, their faces were instantly filled with one emotion, terror. Trial challenger Lin Ling. How could they not know? Not only was this expert a follower of a god, his strength had also reached a heaven-defying level. Whether it was in terms of strength or status, they were like eggs hitting a rock. Now, can you tell me what you're doing here and whose orders you're following? Lin Ling said, still looking at the young man. You won't kill me if I tell you? The young man gritted his teeth. His desire to live made him unwilling to give up any chance. Swoosh. However, just as he finished speaking, Lin Ling chopped off his head and killed him directly. Bargaining with me? Idiot, tell me obediently. If I'm in a good mood, I might let you go. To be honest, you're not qualified to negotiate with me. Lin Ling shook his head and looked at the remaining people around him. I'll tell you. We were ordered by Martial God Huan Bo, one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures, to seal off Kaiyuan River. The people around him immediately scrambled to speak. Martial God Huan Bo? Hearing that, Lin Ling frowned slightly. Yes. Since the fall of martial god Qilin and martial god Wen Tian, many martial gods have risen in the 9 prefectures in an attempt to replace the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Martial god Huan Bo is one of them. He has also been recognized by the other martial gods and has become one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Sir, this is all we know. Spare our lives, spare our lives. Lin Ling was even more puzzled when he heard these voices. Although the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures were very powerful, the wood spirit tribe of the demonic forest was no small matter either. If it wasn't necessary, martial god Huan Bo shouldn't have provoked the demonic forest. Unless martial god Huan Bo was just a pawn and had been ordered to do so. It seemed like the only way to find out the answer was to enter the demonic forest. What's the situation in the demonic forest now? Lin Ling asked again. The demonic forest is resisting tenaciously because someone pleaded for mercy on their behalf when they were about to be destroyed. Furthermore, the Wood Spirit Tribe and the others joined that powerhouse. The person who pleaded for mercy on their behalf was a Yuan Venerate martial god. The Yuan Venerate martial god has always been alone. Now, he seems to want to develop his own force, so he has also taken a liking to the Wood Spirit Tribe and the others. However, they are still negotiating and we don't know the outcome. However, if the Yuan Venerate martial god no longer cares about the demonic forest, then the demonic forest will be in trouble. The surrounding people all began to speak out. Scram! After obtaining the information he needed, Lin Ling didn't kill them. Although Lin Ling looked down on people who obeyed his orders obediently, he couldn't be bothered to make a move. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior." Some of the surrounding martial gods kowtowed, some saluted, and some fled in terror. What a bunch of vile people. Yu and the others also walked over when they saw them flee. To them, martial gods were like gods in the sky. They had once looked up to them and envied them. However, now, even these godly existences were acting lowly like lapdogs. Naturally, they despised them. After all, they definitely wouldn't beg for mercy if they fell into the hands of the enemy, let alone betray their own people. Of course, while they despised them, they also felt a little sense of accomplishment. After all, being able to make a martial god flatter Lin Ling showed how strong he was. I never imagined that a Yuan venerate martial god would also interfere. However, the wood spirit race, the stone spirit race, and the fire spirit race are all my people. A Yuan venerate martial god is trying to snatch them from me. Lin Ling smiled faintly as he looked at the entrance. He was the totem of the three races. How could he let anything happen to the three races? Furthermore, he couldn't let a Yuan venerate martial god snatch them away. Then, Lin Ling led Yu and the others through the entrance. How beautiful! Yu and Xian Yuan Gu, who were here for the first time, were immediately filled with curiosity as they watched the surging river flow above their heads. Lin Ling smiled but didn't interrupt them. Instead, a map appeared in his hand. This map had been given to him by Brother Wudi. It would allow Lin Ling to find the whereabouts of the demonic forest. After all, the map of the Kaiyuan River was constantly changing. This way. Then, Lin Ling made up his mind and quickened his pace with Yu and the others. Chapter 4184. Back then, when the second master of the place of eternal slumber, Wanyan Shijing, arrived, the tribes in the forest were in a terrible fix. Now that the 10 martial gods had been mobilized, the demon forest would undoubtedly be difficult to resist. However, Lin Ling was a trial taker under Lei Gong. In the 9 states, there were not many who dared to disrespect Lei Gong. Unless it was the Spirit Nation. Of course, if it was a life-and-death feud, they would not have to care about Lei Gong's face. The outcome would be to perish together with Lin Ling. After all, if Lin Ling was killed, Lei Gong would not let the matter rest. As they walked through the forest, Lin Ling saw that many tall trees had collapsed. The forest was filled with sorrow. He could not understand why someone would attack them when the 3 tribes were fighting against the world martial arts. "Brother Ling, they will be fine." Sensing Lin Ling's cold expression, Yu immediately comforted him. Lin Ling nodded. According to his memories, he was getting closer and closer to where the wood spirits resided. Back then, Lin Ling had united the 3 tribes here to resist the place of eternal slumber. He remembered that Wanyan Shijing had arrived but was forced to flee with his tail between his legs. Back then, this was also where I obtained the fruit of good. At this moment, the giant ghost also floated out and sighed. This evil ghost was becoming more and more humane. This forest will belong to us from now on. At this moment, laughter came from afar. Then, a few figures walked through the dense forest, chatting as they walked. Of course, they soon discovered Lin Ling and the others and were all shocked. This was because the Kaiyuan River had been sealed. It should be impossible for anyone to enter. "Who are you people?" Immediately, they walked quickly toward Lin Ling and the others. Yu and the others stared at them calmly. They realized that these people were different from humans. They had long golden hair, pointed ears, and were extremely handsome. People from the Gold Spirit tribe. Instead, it was Lin Ling who recognized these people. The Gold Spirit clan was one of the 5 spirits ancient clans in the Kai Yuan River. However, the territory of the Gold Spirit clan was in the Guyuan Mountains. Now, they had come to the demonic forest. You don't have the right to ask who we are. However, this demon forest is my territory. When did I agree to let you in? Lin Ling's face turned cold. Ha ha ha. Those gold spirits roared with laughter when they heard this. However, not long after they started laughing, Lin Ling's powerful aura exploded, causing them to tremble in fear. Plop. In the end, he knelt down and kowtowed continuously. With their strength, how could they withstand Lin Ling's divine might? Speak. Why are the gold spirits here? Lin Ling took a step forward and asked coldly. Those people didn't dare to hide anything and told him everything they knew. It turned out that the gold spirits and the water spirits had taken a liking to the demonic forest and invited experts to help. As a reward, those experts would receive the Tree of Tao. Lin Ling came to a realization after listening to them. However, Lin Ling was still very curious about the experts they had invited because he knew that there were 2 of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 states. Moreover, it seemed that they weren't the ones behind this. Tell the gold spirits that this is my territory. Get lost. Lin Ling shouted angrily. Then, he led Yu and the others past them and toward the Wood Spirit tribe. Not long after, the Wood Spirit tribe appeared in front of them. There were tall trees and beautiful flowers. Although this place was still beautiful, it obviously lacked spirituality. Many of the Wood Spirit tribe's members were gathered there and their faces were gloomy. Seeing the Wood Spirit tribe, Lin Ling suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Lord Messenger. It didn't take long for the members of the Wood Spirit clan to notice Lin Ling, and they couldn't help but be shocked. Where is the Empress? Lin Ling greeted everyone and got straight to the point. The Empress is here. However, Lord Messenger, you have to help us. They want to kill us all. Yes, although a Yuan venerate martial god has appeared to help us, it has only allowed us to escape death. However, we still have to leave our home. Lord Messenger, we don't want to leave our home. Everyone looked at Lin Ling expectantly. Lin Ling had originally intended to meet the Empress. However, after hearing their words, he stopped in his tracks and said, "Don't worry, I will protect this place. I will protect this place." It was just a simple sentence, but it filled the Wood Spirits with boundless confidence. Of course, some of the Wood Spirit tribe elders who knew the situation were still worried because they knew who was attacking the demonic forest. Those were the people of the gods. Lord Messenger. At that moment, an exclamation was heard in the sky. A huge leaf slowly drifted down with a few people on it. One of them was the Empress. The Empress was undoubtedly very excited when she saw Lin Ling. However, when she saw Yu and the others, she was immediately shocked. It was no wonder that the Lord Messenger was indifferent to her beauty. It turned out that the people around him were all so beautiful. You will protect this place? That's some big talk, but in my opinion, you are just talking nonsense. There was a young man beside the Empress. At this moment, when he saw how agitated the Empress was, he was undoubtedly displeased and immediately spoke disdainfully. Who do you think you are? Do you know who is attacking the demonic forest? You will be scared to death if I tell you. You are really a frog at the bottom of a well. The young man was the first to drop the leaf as he shouted angrily. However, he had just finished speaking when a shocked voice was heard behind him. You are Lin Ling? A middle-aged man stood beside the Empress. He was a Yuan venerate martial god. At the moment, his eyes were trembling as he looked at Lin Ling as though he had seen a demon. He had also seen Lin Ling at the auction held by Taoist Myriad Treasures and had been scared away by Lin Ling's treasure. Furthermore, Lin Ling had killed 2 martial gods in a row. Thus, he was in awe of Lin Ling from the bottom of his heart. Master, who is Lin Ling? The young man couldn't help but feel puzzled when he saw the Yuan venerate martial god's shocked expression. His master was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo. How could such a person know the young man in blue? That's right, I am Lin Ling. Lin Ling replied as he looked at the Yuan venerate martial god. Ah! The Yuan venerate martial god exclaimed in surprise when he heard Lin Ling's acknowledgement. He actually didn't dare approach Lin Ling. This undoubtedly made the people of the wood spirit race feel incredulous. They naturally knew who a Yuan venerate martial god was. He was powerful and famous. Even the invaders had to give him some face. Otherwise, the 3 races of the demonic forest would have been wiped out a long time ago. However, such a powerhouse actually didn't dare approach the Lord Messenger. Chapter 4185. This guy? The Yuan venerate martial god was stunned when he heard this. Then, he flew into a rage. The disciple he had just accepted had actually called Lin Ling this guy. He rushed forward and, under the confused gaze of the young man, suddenly grabbed his neck and smashed him to the ground. Apologize to me. Bang! 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 The Yuan venerate martial god grabbed the youth and kowtowed to Lin Ling, causing the youth to vomit blood continuously. Lin Ling, this disciple of mine is insensible. I hope you don't take it to heart. The Yuan venerate martial god then spoke to Lin Ling. Yes, I'm sorry. The youth's face was covered in blood, but he wasn't a fool. As he spoke, he kept spitting out broken teeth. It's fine. I don't have any objections to him. Lin Ling remained indifferent to the Yuan venerate martial god's actions. He only replied indifferently. His words made the Yuan venerate martial god relax. He knew that Lin Ling didn't care about his disciple's mistakes. However, I do have some objections to you. However, Lin Ling's next words made the Yuan venerate martial god's heart skip a beat. The demonic forest is my territory and I'm protecting it. I heard that you were snatching my people, right? Lin Ling played with his fingernails as he spoke casually. I really didn't know about this. The Yuan venerate martial god's hair stood on end as he explained immediately. In the end, he even gave himself 3 hard slaps. Lin Ling, it's my fault. I didn't know that this was your territory. I didn't recognize you when I tried to snatch people from you. It's my fault, my fault. The crisp sound of a slap rang out, causing the wood spirits to be dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. However, they weren't fools. They immediately guessed that the status of the Great Envoy was higher than the Yuan venerate martial god. Great Envoy. The Empress also looked at Lin Ling excitedly. Last time, Lin Ling had saved their devil forest. This time, Lin Ling had come to save the devil forest once again. Lin Ling was worthy of being their envoy. Lin Ling, you also know that my island is very big, but there aren't many people. Right now, these 3 races are about to be killed, so I'm pleading for mercy on their behalf. I want to bring them to my island to increase their popularity. That's all. The Yuan venerate martial god explained after giving himself 3 slaps. Then, his eyes lit up. Furthermore, I also saved them. That's why I'm giving you a chance to speak. Lin Ling nodded. Then, he said calmly, tell me, who's having designs on the demon forest? It's a trial taker of a god. The Yuan venerate martial god said immediately. As expected. Lin Ling's eyes lit up. In fact, he had already guessed that this was the case. After all, the other party had to have a powerful background to be able to summon so many powerhouses. So, how's your discussion going? Lin Ling asked again. The trial taker only wants the Great Path tree, and this tree is in the Devil Forest. Therefore, after my pleading, they let the 3 races off. However, the 3 races want to leave the Devil Forest, the Yuan Venerate Martial God said. What a trial taker! Are you a bandit? Lin Ling's face turned cold. He didn't care what kind of trial taker the other party was. In any case, this was Lin Ling's territory. There was no way they could get their hands on it. The Yuan Venerate Martial God heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Lin Ling's domineering voice. It seemed like Lin Ling didn't mind his mistake. Then, he realized that there was finally some way to resolve the matter of the 3 great races. After all, Lin Ling of the heavenly voice of the god was going to make an appearance. This was a god who had seen gods before, a god who possessed supreme authority. However, when I spoke with them last time, they said that they wouldn't show any respect to anyone who came. Then, the Yuan Venerate Martial God pondered for a moment before speaking again. His tone was warm and gentle as he tried to sow discord. Lin Ling naturally heard the provocation. However, he didn't mind. Instead, he said nonchalantly, no matter who it is, they will have to show respect to me. Yuan Venerate Martial God, I will give you a chance to redeem yourself. Lead the way. All right. The Yuan Venerate Martial God couldn't help but smile excitedly when he heard this. Although he was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo, this was a confrontation between trial takers. He couldn't afford to provoke either side. Unless he didn't fear the gods. Therefore, he could also follow along and watch the confrontation between the trial takers. Follow Sir Envoy. Upon seeing that Lin Ling had made a decision, the people of the wood spirit race also shouted one after another. The Empress was both excited and shocked. She was excited because Sir Envoy had returned. She was shocked because, based on Sir Envoy's tone, he didn't seem to be afraid of those powerhouses. She had never imagined that Lin Ling would actually grow to such a level after being separated from Lin Ling for a few years. This was because she knew very well just how incredible it was to be feared by the 9 states' 10 great martial gods. Moreover, there were such figures among those powerhouses. However, Lin Ling was also such a figure. The large group followed Lin Ling and advanced through the dense forest. Inform the fire spirit race and the earth spirit race. Along the way, the Empress also spoke to the people of her race. Those people understood and ran happily through the forest. After a long time, the people of the fire spirit race and the earth spirit race arrived. Without any suspense, they were extremely excited. Sir Totem. The patriarch of the fire spirit race knelt down immediately. Whine, whine, whine. The dwarves of the earth spirit race also knelt down. However, this group of dwarves also looked at Lin Ling anxiously. Lin Ling immediately scolded them jokingly and threw away the wine on his body. Over the years, he had already developed a habit of collecting fine wine from all over as long as he had the chance. He had never imagined that it would come in handy today. When the Yuan Venerate Martial God saw that the 3 great races were very familiar with Lin Ling, he immediately knew that it was impossible for him to recruit the 3 great races. Continue leading the way. Lin Ling didn't stay here for too long. He let the Yuan Venerate Martial God continue leading the way. Lin Ling was also very curious as to which trial taker had interfered in his territory. As they passed through the mountains, they finally saw a large luxurious mansion located in the distance when they were close to the ancient Yuan mountain range. It was obvious that these mansions had been built not long ago. However, they had everything they needed. They were magnificent and majestic. Furthermore, the martialists strolling around nearby were all martial gods. They were obviously extremely famous people in Jojo. Based on their obedient appearance, this also indicated the trial taker's identity. If the 4 great gods were compared to emperors, then the trial taker would be the chief general. Of course, he had to be at the level of the divine heavenly voice. Ordinary trial takers still weren't valued. After all, the divine heavenly voice was something that could allow one to meet the gods. Lin Ling, we have arrived. I will go and talk to them. After all, I just saw the trial taker 3 days ago. I reckon he is still here. Chapter 4186. Their disdainful smiles deepened when they saw the Yuan venerate martial god. This Yuan venerate martial god was pleading for mercy? He was simply overestimating himself. May I ask if Sir Black Flag is here? The Yuan venerate martial god asked with cupped fists. He was also a little depressed. He was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo, a powerhouse with high standards. Now, he had to lower his voice before these weak martialists. This was too depressing. Yuan venerate martial god, Sir Black Flag has already given you a lot of face. Now, you still want to plead for mercy? Let me give you a word of advice. Scram. An old man with a goatee said nonchalantly. His attitude was extremely arrogant. The Yuan venerate martial god cursed silently when he saw this. Spiritual Master Goat, I do have an important matter to discuss with him. I already said, scram. The old man called Spiritual Master Goat snorted. You should know that Sir Black Flag has already given you a lot of face. If you continue to pester him, Sir Black Flag's promise to you might fall through. Boom. However, as soon as he said this, a fist flew over from afar at an extremely fast speed. Bang! When it landed on the old man's head, it exploded like a watermelon. The entire process was straightforward and simple. This unforeseen event immediately made the powerhouses in front of the mansion feel as if they were facing a great enemy. The Yuan venerate martial god was flabbergasted and in disbelief. After all, the person standing in front of him was Lin Ling. What's the point of wasting time with them? Lin Ling shook off the blood on his hand as he spoke coldly to the Yuan venerate martial god. His words made the Yuan venerate martial god's jaw drop. He was shocked by Lin Ling's domineering attitude. However, a carefree feeling arose spontaneously soon after. He had also lowered his voice for a long time. Damn it, this was the first time he felt so refreshed. Then. What should we do next? The Yuan venerate martial god asked nervously. Are you an idiot? Lin Ling glanced at the Yuan venerate martial god strangely. We are here to look for someone, not to reminisce about the past, nor to plead for mercy. If anyone dares to talk nonsense, just beat them up. This sentence made the Yuan venerate martial god wake up from a dream. That's right, he followed Lin Ling. Why did he have to plead for mercy like a dog? At once, he straightened, his back stiffened and roared thunderously, Sir, come out here. The Yuan venerate martial god's attitude was insufferably arrogant, as if he was venting all his frustrations over the past few days. Yuan venerate martial god, you. These powerhouses were furious. How could Yuan venerates and martial gods of the past be so arrogant? Whoosh! The Yuan venerate martial god did not waste any more words. He lunged forward and his arm turned into a rock. He grabbed a powerhouse and smashed him into the ground. Boom! After smashing down, a black rock appeared out of thin air and suppressed the expert, causing him to vomit blood more than 10 meters away. Actually, the strongest martialist present was a Yuan venerate martial god. Even Lin Ling couldn't compare to him. It was just that Lin Ling's status was higher. After suppressing that powerhouse, the Yuan venerate martial god was elated as he glared angrily at everyone. With a martial god backing him, he could do things without the slightest scruple. Great! Great! Upon seeing the Yuan venerate martial god's insufferably arrogant attitude, the powerhouses didn't dare be arrogant anymore. Who are you? At this moment, a figure walked out of the mansion's door. This person looked very young, about 30 years old, but his strength was not weak. He was martial god Ripple Illusion, one of the 10 new martial gods in JoJo. He immediately squinted at the Yuan venerate martial god when he walked out. He didn't understand why the latter was so bold. Damn you! Ask Sir Black Flag to come out here. However, the Yuan venerate martial god clearly wasn't afraid of him this time. Haha. Is Sir Black Flag someone you can meet whenever you want? I'll give you a chance. Get lost immediately. Martial god Ripple Illusion sneered. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ling's voice was heard. Yuan venerate martial god, can you capture him? Yes. The Yuan venerate martial god nodded instinctively and turned to look at Lin Ling. When he saw Lin Ling nod, he immediately understood and erupted with his full power. The ferocious speed, the unparalleled power of divinity, and the divine embryo all surged forward in a mighty wave. Boom! When this aura was unleashed, the mansion behind was the first to explode and turn into dust. The strength of a Yuan venerate martial god was terrifying. The surrounding martialists were also blown away by this violent storm. Martial god Ripple Illusion had clearly not expected that a Yuan venerate martial god would dare to attack him. This was rebellion. Could a Yuan venerate martial god dare to go against a martial god? Unfortunately, although he was also one of the 10 great martial gods in JoJo, he was still a new martial god and his strength couldn't compare to a Yuan venerate martial god. Furthermore, the Yuan venerate martial god had attacked suddenly. This could be considered a sneak attack. Thus, in a short moment, he was sealed by the mysterious stone and turned into a 2-meter-tall divine stone. Only his head was exposed. He resisted with all his might, but it was useless. At the same time, Lin Ling's eyes lit up. The strength of a Yuan venerate martial god was indeed terrifying. He had a feeling that even if he used all his strength, he might not be a match for a Yuan venerate martial god unless he used a treasure to suppress him. However, he had never imagined that a Yuan venerate martial god would be so cowardly despite being so strong. He would actually be so afraid of him and the other trial takers. However, Lin Ling quickly recalled that this Yuan venerate martial god had also been like this back at the Guyuan mountain range. This was a well-prepared powerhouse who had endured humiliation all his life. Thus, there was more or less some cowardice in the depths of his character. Swoosh! Lin Ling rushed forward and arrived before the divine stone. Following which, he viciously threw 3 slaps at it. You dare to act so arrogantly in my territory? Slap! 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 Martial god Ripple Illusion had been restrained by the Yuan venerate martial god and could only endure Lin Ling's 3 palm strikes. And he was also beaten silly. You! Who are you? You must have a death wish. Martial god Ripple Illusion roared furiously. He had never imagined that he, one of the 10 great martial gods of the 9 states, would actually be slapped in the face. You are indeed one of the 10 great martial gods of the 9 states. You are very strong. Even your skin is thicker than others. Lin Ling ignored his words. Instead, he waved his numb palm and took out his scabbard. Then, he swung it at martial god Ripple Illusion's face as though he was holding the leg of a chair. Bang! A dull sound was heard. Martial god Ripple Illusion's nose was smashed crooked and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This scared the surrounding martial gods so much that they started trembling. Who exactly was this person? He was simply too arrogant. Furthermore, this was because Lin Ling had used the scabbard. If he had used the Tyrant Song sword, the restrained martial god Ripple Illusion might have been killed immediately. Trial taker Lin Ling, what is the meaning of this? A figure finally leaped out of the crumbling mansion and appeared before Lin Ling's eyes. This person's strength was also unfathomable. However, there was also a sword-like sea urchin radiating from his body. This was a divine might. Chapter 4187. Trial Challenger Lin Ling. Martial god Huan Bo's eyes narrowed at Huang Xiaolong's words. Everyone else's jaws dropped to the floor. So this frivolous and unruly young man was a trial challenger, no wonder he was so unbridled. Who are you? Lin Ling slowly sheathed his tyrannical song sword and asked nonchalantly when he saw the newcomer. Lin Ling had never seen this young man before, nor did he expect the other party to recognize him. I'm Yojin's 4-star trial challenger, Wangu Yanhui. The young man puffed out his chest proudly and said nonchalantly, Lin Ling, why did you disrupt my trial mission? You should know that disrupting other people's trial mission is equivalent to provoking a god. Trial mission? Lin Ling was inwardly surprised, then sneered, what trial mission is this? Looking for the world will in the Kai Yuan River. Wangu Yanhui immediately answered. The world will in the Kai Yuan River? Lin Ling naturally knew where it was. It was at the Dragon Clan side. He had once communicated with that world will. The world will was on the other side of the Kai Yuan River, but this Wangu Yanhui's gaze was on the Devil Forest. Obviously, he was using the trial mission as an excuse to run amok. Bullshit. Thinking of this, Lin Ling snapped angrily, first, who said others can't interfere with the trial mission? Did you say that? Or did Eugene say that? This was the truth, other trial challengers were not prohibited from participating in the trial mission. In fact, there were times when trial challengers would fight to the death just for a single mission. When Lin Ling went to the Spirit Light City as a scout, he was doing the same mission with Longyang and the others. Therefore, there was no such thing as not interfering. Second, this is my territory. You're behaving atrociously in my territory, do you think I can just stand by and watch? Lin Ling repeated. You. Wangu Yanhui gritted his teeth, knowing that Lin Ling was right. Indeed, senior apprentice Sister Luli had said that Lin Ling was very difficult to deal with. Seeing it today, it was indeed so. It was obvious that he and Luli Empress were both gods. Alright, you're right. However, are you really going to go against me for the sake of the demonic forest? Wangu Yanhui spoke again. Go against you? You think too highly of yourself. Let me tell you, this devil forest is under the protection of I, Lin Ling. Whoever dares to mess around here will be going against me, Lin Ling. Lin Ling stepped forward with an overbearing aura. Huang Xiaolong could tell that although Wangu Yanhui was a trial challenger, Wangu Yanhui's strength was lower than his. Alright, I will report this matter to Lei Gong and let him convict you. This is because you actually provoked other trial takers for no reason. Watching Lin Ling's momentum climbing higher and higher, Wangu Yanhui's anger soared once again. However, he didn't dare to make a move. If he did, it would be equivalent to provoking the lightning god Great Hall. Hee, you're talking big. May I ask, what star-level trial challenger are you now? Listening to Wangu Yanhui's words, Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and immediately mocked, didn't you say you're a 4-star cultivator? A guy who hasn't even seen a god realm cultivator, you can see Lei Gong? You must be dreaming. Lin Ling's last sentence left Wangu Yanhui speechless. Wangu Yanhui's body trembled uncontrollably because Lin Ling was also mocking him, Wangu Yanhui, as trash. Yo, Lin Ling, why are you bullying some newcomers? But at this time, two figures slowly approached from the distant sky. Judging from the direction they were coming from, they seemed to be coming from the ancient Origin Mountains. Looking closer, they had a divine might similar to a sea urchin. Clearly, they were also trial challengers. No one had expected that 4 trial challengers would gather in the demonic origin forest today. Lin Ling also looked up and immediately discovered that one of them was wearing a long black robe. Even his shoes were black. It was extremely strange. However, this person was very strong and wasn't much weaker than a Yuan Venerate martial god. Come to think of it, this person should be the black flag that the Yuan Venerate martial god had mentioned. Furthermore, he was also the person with the greatest authority here. The other person was someone Lin Ling was familiar with. It was Lei Gong's trial challenger, Zhong Shan. When Lin Ling had gone to Lei Gong's hall and walked up the sea god stairway, it had been Zhong Shan who had led the way and introduced the rules of Lei Gong's hall. To Lin Ling, Zhong Shan was a good friend. However, Zhong Shan's appearance here undoubtedly surprised Lin Ling. Of course, Zhong Shan was also very surprised as he exclaimed, "Lin Ling, what are you doing here?" As these words faded, Heike turned his head to look at Zhong Shan in astonishment. Clearly, he did not expect Zhong Shan to know Lin Ling. Although there were only 40 trial challengers below the 4 great gods, this didn't mean that everyone knew each other. Big brother Black Flag, this person is disrespectful to me. Wangu Yanhui immediately spoke up when he saw Black Flag arrive. Clearly, Black Flag's status and strength were above Wangu Yanhui's. Black Flag squinted at Lin Ling. He naturally knew about Lin Ling's name. This was someone who had embarrassed senior sister Liuli. He had heard of such a person before. However, after meeting him today, he realized that Lin Ling didn't live up to his reputation. He was as domineering as the rumors said. "Lin Ling, this is our business. What's the meaning of this?" Black Flag said nonchalantly. Then, he glanced at his residence, which had been reduced to dust, and added, "You destroyed our residence. Aren't you being too arrogant by doing this? This fellow lacks manners, so I decided to teach him a lesson." However, Lin Ling wasn't afraid at all as he spoke nonchalantly with his hands behind his back. His frivolous attitude made the Yuan Venerate martial god admire him. Lin Ling wasn't strong, but his guts were ferocious. Previously, he had been afraid that Lin Ling would weaken when he saw Black Flag. If that had happened, even though Black Flag wouldn't have done anything to Lin Ling, the Yuan Venerate martial god would have been unlucky and would have made things difficult for him in the future. Fortunately, Lin Ling was still as arrogant as before. At the very least, Black Flag wouldn't look at the Yuan Venerate martial god anymore. Even if someone needs to be taught a lesson, it should be our god. What right do you have? Black Flag had never imagined that Lin Ling would be so arrogant and not give him any face at all. Right? Upon hearing this, Lin Ling smirked. "I am a heavenly voice of God, while he is a 4-star trial taker that even the gods have never seen before. Is this considered a right?" "It is." Black Flag nodded. "Does this mean that I would also have the right to teach you a lesson if my level was higher than yours?" Black Flag was clearly a heavenly voice of God. He was a powerhouse that had seen Eugene before. "Alright, then may I ask what star trial taker you are?" Lin Ling nodded immediately. "Sorry, I'm a 7-star. Black Flag didn't hide anything as he replied nonchalantly. He also wanted to see Lin Ling's terrified expression after he said this. After all, a 7-star trial taker was an extremely noble status. Being able to reach this level meant that he had completed many missions and was valued by the gods. Chapter 4188. I'm sorry, but I'm also a 7-star. Looking at Heike's smug expression, Lin Ling said word by word. What? As soon as he said that, the 3 trial takers' eyes narrowed. Lin Ling was the trial taker with the fastest growth rate among the 4 gods. At such a young age, he already had the heavenly voice of God. They had long been envious of him. But now, Lin Ling had become a 7-star trial taker? If that was the case, it would be impossible for Heike to show his status in front of Lin Ling. Heike couldn't help but turn to look at Zhong Shan. He wanted to know from Zhong Shan whether Lin Ling was bragging. However, Zhong Shan was also confused. He remembered that Lin Ling was only a 6-star trial taker before he left. Therefore, Zhong Shan frowned and asked, "Lin Ling, are you sure you're a 7-star trial taker? Could it be that someone dares to make a joke about a god?" Lin Ling asked. His words made the 3 trial takers fall silent. Indeed, no matter how arrogant a trial taker was, he wouldn't dare to make a joke about a god. Since Lin Ling dared to say that, he must be really confident. "I'll give you a chance." Scram. Seeing that they were silent, Lin Ling also ordered them to leave. "Lin Ling, why do you have to do this? We're all trial takers. Why don't we each take a step back? There's no need to offend Heike and the others." Scram. At this moment, Zhong Shan frowned and said, "How about giving me face?" Scram. "Brother Zhong Shan, I'm giving you face. That's why I'm being so nice." Lin Ling looked at Zhong Shan indifferently and said, "You should know that this demonic forest is my territory. If a trial taker dares to run amok in my territory, do you think I can stand by and do nothing? Therefore, he's the one offending me now, not the other way around." Scram. Hearing this, Zhong Shan was enraged. This was because He Qi and Wangu Yanhui were both looking at him, and Lin Ling had met the gods later than him. Therefore, if he couldn't even deal with Lin Ling, he wouldn't be able to swallow his pride. With this thought in mind, Zhong Shan's voice also became solemn. "Lin Ling, no matter what, I am the one who brought you to Lei Gong's Great Hall, you must give me this face no matter what." He remembered that Lin Ling was very easy to talk to in the Lei Gong Hall, so his dignified appearance should be able to scare Lin Ling. However, he didn't know that Lin Ling was easy to talk to, but that depended on the time. At this moment, Lin Ling didn't give anyone face because this had already violated Lin Ling's principles. Moreover, if he, Zhong Shan, walked around the 9 prefectures and the final world and asked for Lin Ling's name, everyone would say that this Lin Ling wasn't easy to talk to. "Brother Zhong Shan, you brought me to Lei Gong's Great Hall last time, so I will give you face." At this moment, Lin Ling looked indifferently at Zhong Shan and said. These words made Zhong Shan smile with satisfaction, but Lin Ling wasn't done yet. "I will give you face, so I will call you Brother Zhong Shan for the rest of my life. If you still want to go against me, then don't blame me for not being polite to you." With the last sentence, Lin Ling's voice was so cold that it penetrated one's heart. "You dare!" Hearing this, Zhong Shan was furious. How dare a latecomer be so arrogant? Although Lei Gong valued Lin Ling a little, in Zhong Shan's opinion, Lin Ling was just lucky to be chosen by Lei Gong. Sooner or later, he would return to his original state. In the past, Zhong Shan was polite to Lin Ling on the surface, but in fact, he was already dissatisfied with Lin Ling. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the time when Lin Ling left the Lei Gong's Great Hall to plot against Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling always disappeared too quickly, causing his plan to fail. "It seems like Zhong Shan, you are bent on going against me." Lin Ling was also angry. Of course, he would give face to Zhong Shan. However, Zhong Shan didn't know how to conduct himself. He, Lin Ling, had already made it clear that the demon forest was under his protection. If Zhong Shan wanted to give face to him, he should have advised He Qi, not him, Lin Ling. It was as if Zhong Shan didn't help his own people when they were being bullied at home. Instead, he bullied his own family. "Let me tell you, if you don't scram after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, don't blame me for taking action." Lin Ling issued his final order. He Qi and the others' faces turned cold. This Lin Ling was too arrogant. He didn't give them any face at all. However, when they thought of Lin Ling's identity, they didn't dare to act recklessly. After all, angering Lin Ling wasn't a big deal, but angering Lei Gong would be troublesome. You have guts. Mountains and rivers will meet again. Don't fall into my hands. He Qi stared at Lin Ling and said word by word. Obviously, he had no choice but to retreat now. Wait. But at this time, Wangu Yanhui shouted. He looked at Lin Ling and said, Lin Ling, this matter is between you and me, why don't we settle it, using the simplest method of a cultivator to fight? If you win, this Devil Essence Forest will belong to you, and we will never step into it again. If I win, then, if I win, the Demon Forest will belong to me. What do you think? Of course, you can also choose not to fight. However, if the dignified Tianyin of the Seven-Star God is afraid of a newcomer, your reputation will be tarnished. Of course, you, Lin Ling, might not care, but Lei Gong's side won't be able to say anything. In the mission, there must be something fishy going on. That's why you, Lin Ling, soared to the heavens in one step and became a Seven-Star God. Wangu Yanhui's voice was filled with provocation. Hearing Wangu Yanhui's words, He Qi and Zhong Shan sneered. Lin Ling was a 7-star cultivator, but in fact, they still doubted the authenticity of that claim. If Lin Ling didn't even dare to battle Wangu Yanhui, then the 2-word 7-star would be an undeserved reputation. Do you dare or not? Wangu Yanhui's aura became overbearing when he saw Lin Ling's silence. Seeing this, a cold light flickered in Lin Ling's eyes. These people had turned the demon forest upside down, yet he, Lin Ling, only asked them to scram. This was already giving them enough face. However, this Wangu Yanhui was still unwilling to give up. Did he really think that he, Lin Ling, was an easy target to bully? As you wish. At this point, it was impossible for Lin Ling to refuse. He, straightforward. Wangu Yanhui was not surprised by Lin Ling's nod. After all, he guessed that it was fine for Lin Ling to lose face, but he did not dare to make Lei Gong lose face as well. Let's go over there. Wangu Yanhui took the lead, flying towards the ancient Yuan mountain range's sky. He Qi and Zhong Shan also sneered coldly and flew away. Zhong Shan, how is this Lin Ling's strength? His talent is not bad, he has 2 divine embryos, but his cultivation realm is not high, and his divine force is not strong. He might be powerful against other martial god realm masters, but against us who are also martial god realm cultivators, his strength is weaker. I estimate that the gap between Wangu Yanhui and Lin Ling's strength is not too big. Wangu Yanhui is only a little bit stronger. After all, according to the time, they should be the same batch of cultivators. It's just that Lin Ling's luck was good, and he did some mission that caused his cultivation to soar. Chapter 4189. After all, every person who could become a trial taker was an extremely powerful entity. For example, although Wangu Yanhui wasn't the strongest among the trial takers, he was still considered a mid-tier existence. So far, he had only lost to one person. While Heike and the others were talking, the people from the 3 races and the Yuan venerates and martial gods were also heading towards the Guyuan mountain range. However, they were still a little worried about this battle. Even the Yuan venerates and martial gods weren't sure if Lin Ling could win, unless Lin Ling used his god-destroying trump cards. However, if that happened, Lin Ling would have an unfair advantage. This should be Big Brother Ling's first battle with a trial taker after becoming a trial taker, right? Lin Ling will definitely win. Even Yu and the others weren't completely confident. Unfortunately, they didn't know that Lin Ling had already fought a trial taker in Spirit Light City. His opponent was Han Xie, who was also a rather famous existence among the trial takers. Unknowingly, more and more people had gathered in the sky above the Guyuan mountain range. The powerhouses of the metal spirit race and the water spirit race were lingering in the distance. Furthermore, they had all recognized Lin Ling. Back then, Lin Ling had killed the high priest and princess of the metal spirit race. Therefore, they hoped that Lin Ling would be defeated. Of course, they hadn't expected that the enemy of their two races, Lin Ling, would also be a trial taker. Furthermore, it seemed like his status wasn't low. Lin Ling, I heard that you have 2 divine embryos. Today, I'll be able to exchange some pointers with you. I'm especially curious about your human monarch flame. After a moment, the 2 of them floated in the sky. Wangu Yanhui also said, because I also have a fire divine embryo. I hope you can make me use this divine embryo. I also hope you can make me use my human monarch flame. Lin Ling said indifferently with his hands clasped behind his back. You're stubborn, but let me tell you this. Among the trial takers, I've defeated a few, but I've only suffered 1 defeat so far. And that person was the 7-star trial taker Han Xie. Only an old man with such qualifications can defeat me. As for you? I'm sorry. It's not that I'm looking down on you. You're a 7-star trial taker, but in my opinion, you're just someone who doesn't have the qualifications. Wangu Yanhui nodded his head. Suddenly, a large number of red light dots appeared around his body, condensing and covering his entire body. Oh right, I heard that you're a newbie, so I shouldn't talk about Han Xie in front of you. With your knowledge, I'm afraid you've never heard of him. In the end, Wangu Yanhui's body was covered by a layer of crystalline crystal. This crystalline crystal was neither jade nor gold, and it looked like a layer of armor. On the surface of this armor were tiger stripes, and there were 3 tiger stripes on Wangu Yanhui's cheeks. The aura of a ferocious beast burst out. This aura carried with it a unique characteristic, and that was chaos. One of the 4 great vicious beasts of the universe, Qiongqi. In the distance, Black Flag stared at Wangu Yanhui's transformation with a faint smile on his face. He knew that Wangu Yanhui possessed the true Qiongqi physique. His strength was boundless, and he was the representative of the world's most monstrous vicious beasts. A light flickered in Lin Ling's eyes. He possessed one of the 4 great vicious beasts, Chaos Beast, so he naturally sensed Wangu Yanhui's ferocious aura. However, unlike Chaos Beast, Wangu Yanhui's ferocious aura was more chaotic, as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. However, Lin Ling had to admit that Wangu Yanhui's Qiongqi physique was slightly stronger than his Chaos Beast physique. At the same time, Wangu Yanhui opened his eyes. His pupils were crimson, looking extremely demonic. He spoke softly, my Qiongqi divine fetus physique is the 8th strongest physique in the God's era. Now, I'll let you have a taste of my power. He stretched out a red claw and clenched it, causing the void to explode. That was 200,000 worlds worth of world force. No wonder he could become a cultivator, his physical strength was stronger than Lin Ling's. Wangu Yanhui was also an expert that Lin Ling had fought so far. His physical strength was stronger than Wang Shui's 8-9 devil art. From another perspective, Wangu Yanhui's strength was comparable to the leader of the 9 prefectures 10 vicious. After all, although Wang Shui's strength was comparable, there was still a gap between them. Wangu Yanhui, on the other hand, did not lack this gap. Interesting. Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile. He no longer concealed his strength. Talent fusion. 6 divine embryos erupted at the same time. Lin Ling's entire person became majestic. Dragon claws, jellyfish tentacles, chaos beast, human king's flame, and lightning lock physique were all displayed. This aura is also very strong. Noticing Lin Ling's transformation, Black Flag and Zhong Shan frowned slightly. But at this time, Wangu Yanhui had already made his move. A red light flickered, splitting the sky. In the next moment, a giant claw with ferocious power slammed down on Lin Ling. 200,000 worlds worth of world force exploded. Boom! At the same time, Lin Ling also swung his dragon claws. Like two fierce beasts colliding, both figures were sent flying back. How is this possible? Wangu Yanhui had just stopped moving when he exclaimed in shock. The arm that he had swung out earlier felt numb. In this first clash, he actually did not gain any advantage. His body of Qiong Qi had been nurtured by the fearsome sea, cleansed by the chaotic Qi of the emperors of the realms, and refined by countless treasures. Only then had he reached the innate divine fetus realm and was very close to becoming a grade 2 divine fetus. Moreover, his cultivation level was at the advanced stage of the martial god realm, which was higher than Lin Ling's. Higher, but still unable to suppress the other party? Although Lin Ling had many talents and had the ability to fuse them together, in Wangu Yanhui's eyes, he was just an assortment of miscellaneous talents. No matter how many talents he had, they could not compare to a single talent specialization. At this time, Lin Ling also made his move. Displaying the speed of 15,000 worlds, Huang Xiaolong appeared in front of Wangu Yanhui in the blink of an eye. His dragon claws clenched into a fist and punched out. Although Lin Ling only had 15 worlds worth of world force, Lin Ling had already fused his 6 dantians. Adding the power of his 6 divine embryos, it naturally made up for the difference of 50,000 worlds. In fact, Huang Xiaolong was even stronger. Dazzling divine light shone, as if his radiance would shine for eternity. The two experts exchanged more than a dozen moves. Looking at their figures, it was as if two gods were clashing, causing the earth to erupt in cheers. So fierce, Zhongshan, this Lin Ling strength is stronger than expected. Ah! That's not possible. The last time he climbed the ascending god staircase, he barely managed to defeat the 36 city lords. With his current strength, I'm afraid he is invincible among the 36 city lords. Last time? How long was that? Ah! Don't tell me it was 100 years ago. In 100 years, his strength should have increased a long time ago. Ah! Less than 5 years. What? After exchanging a few words, even He Qi was shocked. Reaching this level of strength in less than 5 years, this Lin Ling was too monstrous. Chapter 4190. Rumble Rumble Rumble. While they were conversing, Lin Ling and Wangu Yanhui had already exchanged more than 100 moves. It was as if the entire ancient Yuan mountain range had been destroyed by them. Lin Ling's strength shocked the 5 great clans. Of course, even Yu and the rest were shocked, unable to understand where Lin Ling had gone, and how did his strength increase so much. Of course, they didn't know that Lin Ling had gone to the Spirit Light City, where he had undergone a complete transformation. As for Wangu Yanhui, the more he fought, the more shocked he became. From the beginning, Lin Ling had been evenly matched, but now, Lin Ling was slowly suppressing him. Lin Ling, I have underestimated you, but you should be using your full strength, while I have not. After being sent flying by Lin Ling's punch, Wangu Yanhui let out a roar and opened his mouth to spit out a red sword. It floated in front of Wangu Yanhui as if it had a spirit of its own, lightly nodding its head at Wangu Yanhui. The moment this red sword appeared, Wangu Yanhui's expression turned arrogant. He looked at Lin Ling, waiting to see what Lin Ling had to say. However, not only did Lin Ling remain calm, he even crossed his arms over his chest, looking at Wangu Yanhui with indifference. The meaning behind his gaze was clear: show me what you've got, I, Lin Ling, will be waiting. Arrogant. With just a glance, Wangu Yanhui's lungs nearly exploded from anger. He had thought that once the red sword appeared, Lin Ling would take it seriously. Spring wanes, the west wind fades, pouring the Big Dipper, filling it with the autumn wind, the slanting wind drizzles, the rain is sparse, the wind is sudden, the night rain is bleak. Wangu Yanhui's cold voice sounded, and the red sword floating in front of him emitted a dazzling light. It shot out, and actually split into a large number of red swords. These red swords formed a trumpet-like sword array, and all the swords were aimed at Lin Ling, emitting a dazzling sword light. Then, they enveloped Lin Ling and flew towards him. From afar, the scene was spectacular. 7 divine swords. He Qi mumbled to himself. He knew that it was a grade 6 innate divine weapon. It was capable of unleashing a tremendous amount of divine energy. There were a total of 50 divine energy. Rumble. Countless red swords shot towards Lin Ling like waves. The red sword light seemed to illuminate the entire ancient Yuan mountain range. And within the waves of swords, Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He immediately realized how extraordinary this sword was. Red sword, red sword. This was Lin Ling's first time seeing a sword of this color. Furthermore, when the red light enveloped him, Lin Ling discovered that his speed, defense, and attack were all suppressed by 10%. A very good sword. Come out. Lin Ling smiled and shouted heroically. Whoosh. From the sword gate behind him, the tyrannical Song sword drew a beautiful trajectory and landed on Lin Ling's body. Billowing killing intent and demonic qi filled the air. Together with Lin Ling's divine embryo aura, it made Lin Ling look like a sword demon from the era of gods. How majestic. The 5 clans on the ground looked at Lin Ling. They realized that Lin Ling's long hair was dancing in the wind, and there were countless tentacles waving behind him. In addition to that, he had a mighty sword. He was truly a godlike existence. Bang! The void exploded as Lin Ling pounced forward with the sword in his hand. The sword was brilliant, and it was as if it was slashing in all directions. Lin Ling's sword could be both soft and hard. When it was soft, it was like a swift sword, and when it was hard, it was like a door plank. Right now, it was in the form of hard. Clang clang clang. The collision of swords was extremely ear-piercing. It was even more dazzling. The 5 races were so dazzled by the dazzling sword battle that they could not see the sky clearly. It took them a long time to get used to it. However, after they got used to it, they saw that Lin Ling had already exchanged countless moves with the countless red swords in the sky. Sword moves that seemed simple yet contained endless mysteries were clearly displayed before everyone's eyes. Originally, Wangu Yanhui had been attacking, while Lin Ling had been defending. However, gradually, Lin Ling began to take the initiative to attack. This was because the sword in his hand was too ferocious. When he swung it, those red swords were also swept away by a gust of wind. In the end, the entire sky had disappeared. Only endless sword lights were flickering, as dazzling as lightning. How terrifying! The people on the ground also exclaimed. These 2 people were not only powerful trial takers, but they were also 2 exceptional swordsmen. Lin Ling's sword is also so powerful. The Yuan venerate martial god knew that Lin Ling's treasures were powerful, but he had never imagined that Lin Ling's swordsmanship would also be so terrifying. Time passed quietly. In the end, the 2 figures in the sky had already disappeared. Only endless sword lights were left. However, from time to time, thunderous sounds could be heard. Those were the ear-piercing sounds formed by the collision of swords. Once this sword is unleashed, heaven and earth will end. An old man from the gold spirit race muttered to himself. He was also holding a golden sword in his hand. However, the sword was trembling and emitting a sword cry at the moment. At the same time, a sharp sword aura emanated from his body all of a sudden. He had broken through. He had actually broken through. This old man was obviously also an expert swordsman. Thus, when he watched the clash of swords between Lin Ling and Yuan venerate martial god, he had actually comprehended something and his understanding of the sword had greatly improved. The people from the gold spirit race were also shocked. Then, they all stared at the sky. They immediately knew that the clash of swords between the two trial takers was actually sprinkling the great Tao of the sword. Clang! At that moment, an unprecedentedly crisp sound was heard. The red swords in the sky had been swept away and cracks had appeared on one of them. How can Lin Ling be so strong? Black Flag instantly realized something. After all, he saw that Wangu Yanhui couldn't suppress Lin Ling at all. Instead, Lin Ling was suppressing him. Flame mark. Right at this time, fiery runes appeared around Huang Xiaolong as Buddha flames descended. These Buddha flames were akin to the divine light behind a Buddha god, and the one who released this divine light was Wangu Yanhui. When it bloomed continuously, it caused everything to calm down. Furthermore, the Buddhist flames that bloomed were so large that they enveloped the entire ancient Yuan mountain range. In the sky, Lin Ling smiled slightly. He knew that Wangu Yanhui had unleashed another trump card after seeing that his red sword couldn't suppress him. This was normal because Wangu Yanhui's red sword had 50 strands of god force. However, Lin Ling's tyrannical song sword had produced 100 strands of god force. Therefore, Lin Ling was merely playing around with Wangu Yanhui. Otherwise, if they were serious, Lin Ling was confident that he could break all of Wangu Yanhui's swords. However, Wangu Yanhui was worthy of being a trial taker. He had many tricks up his sleeves, and all of them were extremely powerful. If Lin Ling hadn't gone to the Spirit Light City and obtained the broken sword, Lin Ling admitted that he wouldn't be Wangu Yanhui's opponent. But now, Wangu Yanhui was at the end of his rope. Flame mark? Lin Ling noticed that the rings of Buddhist flames were innate divine embryos. However, when it came to playing with fire, among Lin Ling's many divine embryos, he had the deepest understanding of fire. Moreover, he had obtained the God Fragment's essence from the God's inheritance treasure. Therefore, when it came to playing with fire, Lin Ling feared no one. In fact, he wanted to completely suppress Wangu Yanhui. Boom boom boom. Chapter 4191. Everyone was looking at Wangu Yanhui in the sky. After 2 hours of battle, Wangu Yanhui's hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in blood. He cut a sorry figure. In these 2 hours, Lin Ling had been beating Wangu Yanhui up. At this point, no one thought that Wangu Yanhui was Lin Ling's opponent anymore. Of course, this reality was hard to believe. Wangu Yanhui was the same batch as Lin Ling. No, Wangu Yanhui had become a trial challenger earlier than Lin Ling. It was just that Lin Ling's speed was too fast, which led to Lin Ling's higher status. Because of this, many people thought that Lin Ling was among the trial challengers. His strength was not strong. But now, Lin Ling had proven everything. Wangu Yanhui had only lost to one person in his life, and that was Han Xie. Now, there was another Lin Ling. Go die. Right at this time, Wangu Yanhui let out an angry roar, and a crystal head appeared in his palm. This crystal head was extremely mysterious, exuding a gentle light, but there was also a hint of evilness in this light. When this light shone, even He Qi and the others felt a pressure pressing down on them. It was obvious that the crystal head was a rare treasure that came from the gods' era. Wangu Yanhui had only used it now. This meant that this was Wangu Yanhui's trump card. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled and pounced forward. At this moment, the Tyrant Song Sword's god force erupted. Kacha! With a single slash, Wangu Yanhui's arm was severed, and the crystal head fell to the ground. However, the crystal head was very strange. After it fell to the ground, it disappeared without a trace, as if it had a spirit of its own. Ah! Wangu Yanhui let out a blood-curdling scream. His anger was on the verge of exploding. He had just taken out his trump card, but it was interrupted by Lin Ling before he could use it. Lin Ling had definitely concealed his true strength during the previous battle. Admit defeat. Such a scene finally caused Black Flag to shake his head helplessly. At this time, Lin Ling, who had already appeared in front of Wangu Yanhui, clenched his left hand into a fist and punched out mercilessly. The first palm strike was red Bodhi, and the second palm strike was yellow Bodhi. When the third palm strike appeared, the blue Bodhi appeared and landed on Wangu Yanhui's chest. A terrifying Bodhi power erupted from Wangu Yanhui's body. A blue dragon rushed out from Wangu Yanhui's back, sweeping across the sky and sprinkling rain onto the ground. Lan Bodhi Sin Si Dragon King, Divine Dragon Claws Slay Demons. Ah! Wangu Yanhui let out another blood-curdling scream. Lin Ling was expressionless. I'm giving this to you on behalf of the demon primordial forest. Boom! A golden flame appeared in his left hand. Holding the golden flame, Lin Ling ruthlessly slammed it into Wangu Yanhui's chest. The flame of the human sovereign, great heavenly flame. I'm giving this to you on behalf of the three races. Boom! The golden flame landed on Wangu Yanhui's body, causing his body to tremble. In the next second, his body was burned beyond recognition. His flame runes were no match for the human sovereign's flame. Crackle! At this time, white lightning erupted from Lin Ling's body, ferocious beyond compare. These lightning bolts swam towards Lin Ling's arm like a tidal wave. Lightning luster physique. Lin Ling, enough. At the same time, Black Flag's cold voice sounded from the sky. Lin Ling had already won, but Lin Ling was still unwilling to let Wangu Yanhui off the hook. He said coldly, "Do you know the consequences of your actions?" Lin Ling's actions were equivalent to provoking the participants for no reason. If Eugene found out about this, Lin Ling would definitely suffer. Therefore, when Black Flag's words fell, Zhongshan and the others narrowed their eyes, thinking that Lin Ling would stop before going too far. I'm sorry, I really don't know what the consequences are. However, Lin Ling did not even spare Black Flag a glance. His palm was mixed with lightning bolts, and it landed heavily on Wangu Yanhui's body. The ferocious power wreaked havoc on Wangu Yanhui's body, causing him to spit out white bubbles from his mouth. I'm sorry, I really don't know what the consequences are. The crowd was also pondering over Lin Ling's words. Lin Ling was too arrogant. Although his cultivation level was higher than Wangu Yanhui's, he did not have the qualifications to abuse Wangu Yanhui like this. You're courting death. Black Flag's face was black with anger. He wanted to attack Lin Ling, but he did not dare to. He did not have Lin Ling's crazy spirit, attacking without regard for the consequences. He was very clear that if he attacked, Lei Gong would definitely teach him a lesson if Lei Gong found out about this. Of course, Lin Ling was the same. If Eugene knew about this, he would not let Lin Ling off the hook either. However, Lin Ling was even more daring than Black Flag and dared to attack. Lin Ling, where it is possible to let people off, one should spare them. Zhongshan couldn't stand it anymore and said, "If you continue to mess around like this, it'll be fun, but you'll be in trouble afterwards. Get lost." Lin Ling glared at Zhongshan and shouted coldly, "I want to beat up Wangu Yanhui. So what? Come and stop me if you have the ability. If you don't dare, then don't fart over there." Bullshit. His tyrannical voice echoed endlessly in the Guyuan mountain range. Bullshit, bullshit. Those echoes were also replaying in Zhongshan's ears. He was so angry that he wanted to explode. Lin Ling was telling him to fart less. He was too arrogant. The Yuan venerates and martial gods from the three races shuddered when they saw this scene. Lin Ling was indeed arrogant. After all, he was beating up Wangu Yanhui in front of a few trial takers. This kind of violent beating lasted for half an hour. In the end, Lin Ling released Wangu Yanhui. Although he dared to teach Wangu Yanhui a lesson, he did not dare to kill him. After all, killing a trial challenger was no small matter. Take him back and scram. Lin Ling shouted angrily as he threw Wangu Yanhui back. Heike took Wangu Yanhui from Huang Xiaolong's hands and examined him carefully. Wangu Yanhui's current state could only be described as miserable. His face was completely unrecognizable. His skin and flesh were split open, and his body was trembling from the electric shocks. How was this still a trial challenger? He was more like a drowning dog. This made him raise his head and glare at Lin Ling fiercely. He would definitely report this matter to Eugene and make Lin Ling pay the price for his arrogance. Lin Ling shrugged indifferently when he saw Black Flag's glare. He was now a 7-star trial taker and had even prevented the great god of the spirit nation from descending. This merit was no small matter. Therefore, he reckoned that Lei Gong would definitely not blame him for beating up a trial taker. Therefore, Lin Ling raised his middle finger when he met Black Flag's glare. If you are not convinced, go ahead and sue me. Definitely. Black Flag nodded firmly. Remember, I, Lin Ling, am protecting the demonic origin forest. Today is just a small lesson. If you dare come here again, I won't give you a person, but a corpse. Lin Ling threatened again. I don't believe you. Black Flag revealed a sinister smile when he heard this. Go ahead and try. Lin Ling also smiled. His smile contained a hint of madness. Chapter 4192. All trial takers, return. However, at this moment, an aged voice suddenly resounded, and it clearly fell into everyone's ears. All trial takers, return. Hei Qi, Zhongshan, and the others' expressions changed. This was the order of a god. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He immediately knew that the four gods' discussion had ended. Good timing, he, Lin Ling, wanted to see Lei Gong. Moreover, all the trial takers were gathered here. Lin Ling also wanted to see who the remaining 39 trial takers were. Lin Ling, your good luck ends here. See you later. Hei Qi snorted coldly and left with Wangu Yanhui. Zhongshan, on the other hand, frowned as he looked at Lin Ling. His previous ferocious look had suddenly changed. It was as if he had expected better from Lin Ling. He was complaining about Lin Ling's ignorance, causing him to be unable to help Lin Ling even if he wanted to. However, after this matter, Lin Ling no longer treated Zhongshan as a friend. Therefore, Lin Ling smiled and said, Brother Zhongshan, do you have something to say? Lin Ling, I don't know what to say to you. Look at you, aren't you just stirring up trouble for no reason? Zhongshan sighed. Since you don't know what to say to me, then there's no need to say anything. I'm not interested in listening. On the contrary, I know what I should say to you. Lin Ling said with a smile. His expression was a little cold. In short, get the fuck out of here. You. Zhongshan gritted his teeth. Because of his anger, his teeth were crushed. However, he forcefully swallowed them into his stomach. Go to Lei Gong, I won't help you. He snorted angrily, flicked his sleeves, and left. Despicable person. Looking at Zhongshan's back, Lin Ling coldly snorted. Initially, Lin Ling had a pretty good impression of Zhongshan. However, after this incident, he saw Zhongshan clearly. This person was a despicable person. When Heike and the others were still around, Zhongshan had been targeting him. Now that Heike and the others had left, Zhongshan played the pity card as if everything was for Lin Ling's sake. It was as if he was thinking about her. Did they really think that he, Lin Ling, was a newbie? Metal Spirit Clan, Water Spirit Clan, get over here. After that, Lin Ling looked at the Guyuan mountain range and said. In the distance, the two races rushed over in a grandiose manner. Their faces were all pale, and they did not even dare to let out a fart. After experiencing the terrifying battle between the gods, they already knew what kind of existence Lin Ling, who used to be weak, was now. I've never had a good impression of your two clans. However, you two are still ancient clans. Thus, I'll let bygones be bygones. You two are now under my jurisdiction. Do you have any objections? Lin Ling looked at the two races and said calmly. No objections, no objections. We can't wait. The people of the two races shouted one after another. Previously, Lin Ling was so domineering that he even dared to beat up trial takers. If they could be protected by Lin Ling, it would be a great blessing. They never expected that not only did Lin Ling not blame them, but he also wanted to protect them. That's good. You and the Wood Spirit Clan, Fire Spirit Clan, and Earth Spirit Clan will jointly manage the bottom of the Kaiyuan River. Be united and don't cause any trouble. Do you understand? Lin Ling said sternly again. Yes, yes. The people of the two races hurriedly replied. Of course, if there's an enemy that you can't deal with, just say my name and say that this is the territory of trial taker Lin Ling. Lin Ling said again. This sentence was directed at the five races. Yes, sir. The five races shouted in unison. What Lin Ling hadn't expected was that after the unification of the bottom of the Kaiyuan River, the legend of Lin Ling was still being passed down here thousands of years later. Every martialist who entered the Kaiyuan River knew that in the past, a deity had unified the Kaiyuan River and was also the totem of the five races. Of course, this was a story for another time. Lin Ling finally let out a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at the Yuan Venerate Martial God. The Yuan Venerate Martial God shuddered and said nervously, Lin Ling, if you have anything to say, then say it. I'm leaving. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the Kaiyuan River. How about that? Lin Ling said nonchalantly. Sure. The Yuan Venerate Martial God nodded immediately. Previously, Lin Ling had beaten up Wangu Yanhui. This had undoubtedly scared the weak Yuan Venerate Martial God out of his wits. Thank you. We can be considered friends after a fight. I hope we can still be friends in the future. Lin Ling's attitude towards the Yuan Venerate Martial God wasn't as fierce as before. Although the Yuan Venerate Martial God had wanted to teach Lin Ling a lesson after his battle with the carefree sword Martial God on the Guyuan mountain range, Lin Ling didn't care about what had happened in the past after so many interactions. Furthermore, the Yuan Venerate Martial God was helping Lin Ling look after this place, so Lin Ling wouldn't give him a hard time. After all, Lin Ling also knew that the Yuan Venerate Martial God was stronger than Lin Ling in terms of strength. Yu, are you all going back? Lin Ling asked Yu and the others. We'll stay here for the time being. Big Brother Ling, you have urgent matters to attend to. You should leave first. You'll offend the deity if you're late. Yu and the others looked at Lin Ling obediently. Alright, I'll look for you all when I return from the deity's side. Lin Ling nodded. He naturally knew that it had to be an extremely urgent matter for the deity's order to reach the Kaiyuan River. Furthermore, he reckoned that this matter had to be related to the spirit nation. Therefore, after he said goodbye, he immediately left without stopping for a moment. Only the giant ghost followed him on this trip. The giant ghost sat on Lin Ling's shoulder and said, if you meet Lei Gong, don't forget to ask him to help you resolve the matter of your Dantian. Lin Ling nodded. His Dantian had been implanted with a mysterious power by the spirit nation. This matter couldn't be delayed any longer. It was better to resolve it as soon as possible. After leaving the Kaiyuan River, Lin Ling appeared in the sky. He began to form complicated world spirit seals with his hands. After a short moment, rumbling sounds were heard. A flight of stairs extended out from the depths of the sky. It was the stairway to Godhead. Lin Ling immediately went up the stairs. As time passed, the ancient Lei Gong's grand hall above his head quietly appeared before his eyes. Staring at the ancient grand hall, Lin Ling felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that on this trip, he would definitely be able to step into the realm of the gods and search for the ultimate secret of the current 9 prefectures. This also meant that he, Lin Ling, had finally stepped into the peak of the void. Of course, Lin Ling also had a feeling that on this trip, he would meet Luli Empress. This was because this was the moment when the challengers gathered. When Lin Ling arrived at the Lei Gong's Grand Hall, he saw that the Grand Hall was densely packed with figures. Moreover, all of them were indomitable powerhouses, like heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. These people were also from the Lei Gong's Grand Hall. To the 9 prefectures, they were like deities. Just as Lin Ling walked out of the sea god stairs, many people looked over. Some immediately smiled, some remained indifferent, and some quietly flashed their eyes. Everyone had their own thoughts. However, it was obvious that they all knew the name Lin Ling. Chapter 4193. Lin Ling, come in. At this moment, an ancient voice sounded, causing everyone's eyes to light up. Because the voice came from Lei Gong's Grand Hall. Lin Ling immediately knew that this was Lei Gong's voice. He immediately walked towards Lei Gong's Grand Hall. Inside the Grand Hall, it was silent. Not long after, Lin Ling came to a hall and saw an old man sitting there with a smile, as if he was a benevolent old man. But for some reason, Lin Ling felt that the old man seemed to be different from before. Lei Gong was injured? A thought suddenly appeared in Lin Ling's mind. The god of thunder, one of the 4 gods, was one of the 4 most powerful gods in the void. How could he be injured? Could it be the spirit nation? It seemed that the spirit nation was more powerful than imagined. You've done a great service. When Lei Gong saw Lin Ling, he nodded in satisfaction. He stared at Lin Ling as if he was looking at a close friend. Originally, we didn't expect the spirit nation to be the world's will. However, the 3 of you trial takers found out the news. Furthermore, you stopped the spirit nation's great god from descending. That spirit nation's great god is the host of the world's will, and it's a yellow host. Lei Gong said calmly, if not for your interruption, when the spirit nation's great god descended, I'm afraid there would be a lot of twists and turns. Yellow host? Lin Ling was shocked and asked curiously, this world's will host has different colors? That's right. Lei Gong nodded, most of the normal hosts of the world's will are black. However, these hosts are too weak, so unless it's necessary, the world's will not choose them. Black should be the ones that I usually see. Upon hearing this, Lin Ling recalled something. He had seen many of these black hosts. Apart from black, the other colors are green, blue, yellow, red, gold, and purple. According to legend, if the purple world will's host body appears, no one can stop it, and it will be difficult to escape from the great calamity. And during the era of gods, the host body that appeared was red. Although it's the yellow world's will host that has appeared this time, it's not something we can stop. After all, the void today can't compare to the era of the gods. Moreover, this time, the 4 of us went to investigate and discovered a secret. There are many world wills, but they all seem to be hidden in a certain void. The ones left in our 9 continents are only an incomparably small portion. Although I don't know what those world wills are, they are all hidden in a certain void. Why would they hide there? However, at the very least, they were sure that if those world wills all rushed out, then no one could stop them, the void would be destroyed, no more creatures left. Lei Gong enunciated each word with a solemn expression. This made Lin Ling guess that Lei Gong's injury should be caused when he was investigating the spirit nation. They're hidden in a certain void? Soon after, Lin Ling frowned, and a large number of conjectures arose in his mind. Could it be that they're not hidden, but sealed? What? Lin Ling's conjecture startled Lei Gong. Then, he stared at Lin Ling and smiled bitterly. In fact, the Kurishin has the same idea as you. They guessed that those world wills were sealed. Although they don't know which ancient god had this kind of ability to seal them, it's undeniable that such a huge amount of world wills is so huge. This is the real body of the world wills, it's definitely the purple world wills. Lord Lei Gong, I guess that these world wills host bodies were sealed there a long time ago. With the passage of every era, the world wills host bodies also broke through the seal again and again. This is also the reason why the world wills can't be destroyed, because only a part of it was destroyed. Now that countless years have passed, those world wills have become restless again. Lin Ling said again. Your conjecture is very likely. Lei Gong nodded. However, there was already a world wills before the age of gods? And before the age of gods, what era was that? That should be the age of ancient gods. Lin Ling guessed. If my conjecture is correct, then the battle of gods in the age of gods was only a small part of the world will's power. On the contrary, in the age of ancients, the world wills and ancient gods had a battle. In the end, both sides suffered. Alas, although both sides suffered, the world wills did not disappear. Yes, the will of the world did not disappear. If it descended into the void again, then everything would disappear. At the end, Lin Ling also secretly sighed. Because, the world will's goal is to destroy the world. At that time, Lin Ling's relatives and friends will all be killed. This is obviously not what Lin Ling wants to see. Therefore, he will also do his best to stop the world wills. Currently, a yellow world wills host body has appeared. In addition to the hidden world wills host body in Jiuzhou, the future is not optimistic. Lei Gong also sighed. Currently, Lin Ling knows that there are 3 world wills host bodies. The great god of Spirit Nation, the mysterious person sealed by the Dragon Clan, and Xiao Luan. He just does not know what color the world wills of the Dragon Clan and Xiao Luan are. If it is red, then there is no need to fight. They can just wait to be destroyed. If it is purple, then there is no need to talk about it. No one can resist. No matter what, the human inheritance has been passed down for so many years. There has never been a saying of retreating without a fight. Therefore, we humans will do our best to stop the world wills. Today, we let all the trial takers return. There is only one purpose, and that is to let the gods return to their positions. Many years ago, in the broken world of gods, there are many mysterious circles. After our investigation, we found that those seem to be left behind by the gods. When martial artists are in those circles, they can improve their talent and recover a part of their strength. Yes. Lei Gong looked at Lin Ling and said, someone once said that many of the martial artists today are reincarnations of the gods. Therefore, if we can find those mysterious circles, it is very likely that the gods will return, and the void of the 9 continents will reach an unprecedented peak state. Yes. Originally, this matter was not confirmed, and we 4 great gods did not want to announce it. But now, the Spirit Nation is ready to make a move. With the current strength of the 9 continents, it is impossible to resist. Therefore, we 4 great gods decided to seal the 9 continents. Yes. Seal the 9 continents? Yes. Hearing this, Lin Ling's heart thundered. He never thought that the 4 great gods would have such a method. One must know that the Spirit Nation could cultivate gods, but the 4 great gods did not have such methods. However, they were not weak either. They found the god circles left behind in the past and let the gods return to their positions. If the people who entered the god circles were not gods, then wouldn't it be a waste? Lin Ling suddenly asked. No. Although they can't return to their positions as gods, they can greatly improve their talent. After all, those god circles have been nurtured in the world of gods for many years. They already have supreme divine power. Lei Gong shook his head and said, I just don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Yes. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.